that mean we're live, Dylan? We're live. Episode 40, Jason Porplecia. The other thing I do is name Crows players for the episodes that we're up to.
Oh, right,
Yeah, so anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're a bit late, but that's all right. You can blame Clint for that one. He's not here today. We have a special guest. So, from the Royal Adelaide Golf Club, Superintendent Nathan Bennett. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
No worries. It's always a privilege to have people of such, I suppose, high calibre spend their afternoon with us. It's
my pleasure.
We don't get a lot of that a lot of the time because obviously at this time of year everyone's busy. But yeah, you guys started your renovations earlier than everyone else. That's that normal?
Yes, for us. Yeah, we started September. It's for a couple of reasons. One, we want a full season rather than having almost prepping the course twice. So we come out of winter and we really get into it. We pull it apart and then we put all summer, spring and summer and early autumn to have it as good as it can get it to shine for that sort of 6 months, rather than getting it out of dormancy and getting it growing really well and shining and then pulling it apart and then having the process of doing it again. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Doing it earlier takes longer to recover. It is a quicker recovery when it's warmer, but we only sort of have to have that recovery out of dormancy once, and we sort of spark it up. And then now we've got club champs, so we've sort of recovered relatively quickly. It was a pretty standard season for us. So from there, moving forward, we're going to enjoy the condition of the course now up until April.
Yeah,
rather than having it looking really good, and then you go in December or November and then pull it apart again. We're now set for a few months to go.
Yeah, and I think we get that a lot, like obviously at the home lawn, like people want to go early, and there's nothing wrong with that, but as you said, it is a longer process, but you do enjoy the season for a lot longer.
Yeah, it is a difficult thing. It's a terrible thing to go through because you spend all your time looking after it and babying it, and then you literally butcher it and then to get it back. So I can see as a home lawn enthusiast, and guys love it, that you get your lawn looking good out of dormancy. The last thing you want to do is go pull it apart, but you've got to. Otherwise, you may get away with it for a few years, but that catches up with you. So it is a hard process to go through, and all your mates and your partner everyone's like, "What are you doing? Your lawn looked amazing. You've destroyed it," but you've got to be at it. You can't let
trust
it go.
the process.
Yeah, trust the process.
So, for those of you at home that may not know who Nathan is, who are you? And I suppose, where did you come from in terms of, have you always been in the turf, or is it, it's just a natural progression?
Yeah, so for me, that's all I've ever done is turf.
Yep.
I've been 30 years this year. So I come off a wheat farm in northern Victoria and loved farming and loved that aspect, but also hated the fact that it was related to the weather. You could be the best farmer in the world, if you don't have rain, you'd have nothing. So that was always I loved the farming and the lifestyle, but it was never for me because I didn't have control. So I was no academic, and I always wanted to get out and do something else. And I quite liked the idea of the golf course and turf and lawn. We had a big farm. We had a lot of grass around the yard, so a lot of lawn mowing every weekend was out cutting the grass. So I enjoyed that part of it, but that probably got me into wanting to manage golf courses, and I didn't think about anything else other than golf courses. So funnily enough, I did some work experience at Murray Downs as a 16-year-old and actually didn't like it for a week.
Okay.
It was cold, really cold, and it was quite laborious, and a lot of bunker work, and it sort of put me off. And then a year later, work experience in year 11, I think it was, come up again. So I did it again in Melbourne and Albert Park and didn't like that either. So I think some people use work experience kids as just slave labour. So not that Murray Downs was, but I think Albert Park was more just divots and picking up rubbish. And I thought this is not for me either. So, and then I went back and then finished year 12, and at the end of year 12 a job come up at Murray Downs and went for that and was unsuccessful. But then luckily enough, the superintendent at that point was Richard Forsyth. He left there and went to Metro, and he called me up at the end of year 12 and said, "Do you want to come down for a job?" And I had no golfer, so I had no idea what Metro was or where it stood in golf stature. So did some research, and he said, "I'll call back in 2 weeks." So did some research on what it was about, and accepted it. And I hated Melbourne, and as a kid, I'd never liked it. Coming from a farm in the middle of nowhere to move to Melbourne's a fair task. So, but took the job, went there, and loved every minute of it. I think I was lucky enough to be at a place that had a wonderful crew, wonderful staff, and they took me under their wing, and I've still got really close. I'm still close with probably 6 or 7 of those guys now, and I've been, really lived with them and all sorts of stuff. It's been wonderful journey that part of it, and for that first 8 years of my adult life was with those guys and really strong connection. So, and I loved the work. So, and I'm lucky enough to be at a course like that had a really high expectation. And it was really high. So the turf quality at Metro was always regarded as some of the best in Australia, if not the world. The fairways there were amazing. We presented the course as best in great condition all year, but we had some tournaments and some big tournaments that was broadcast all over the world. We had the biggest one was, I think, the 2001 Essential World Match Play. It was huge, and that stuff was shown everywhere. And to have that sort of stuff happening as a 22, 23-year-old was amazing. So to move through that process and to have that grounding at the start was the start of it, and really, I suppose, started my passion for turf. And I think it's more about passion for excellence.
Yeah.
The presentation of something and how you can manipulate something. And that was what I loved about golf course turf rather than farming. So farming, you just did what you had to do and then leave it and let nature take charge, whereas in a golf course you can manipulate that with, whether it be with fertiliser and chemicals and water and drying things out and soil structure and stuff, whereas farming you couldn't. So that's why I've always loved it, because you can present that. And there's not many jobs out there where you can work all day, work all week and stand back and look at it and be really proud of what you've done and how it presents. And it's a lot of comments from, whether it be from members or whatever it is. It's such a really cool feeling to have members or people come past and talk about how good it is. You'll always get the opposite. Why aren't you doing this? Or why did you do that? Or that's no good. But by the whole, it's pretty good. So went from there down to Moona Links, which was down on the Mornington Peninsula at a new stadium-built golf course, which is the open course at Moona. So went down there, started there, and then they were building the Legends course next door, which was a bit more of a enjoyable, fun course. So finished the growing of that and opened that, and then did 2 Aussie Opens down there, which was pretty awesome to have a purpose-built course. If you've ever played, it's brutal. It's some big long holes. It's tough, and they're tucked in bunkers, and it's a brutal golf course, but it's a true test. But it just wasn't successful with golf crowds and golf numbers, and it is hard in Australia to get good numbers unless you live. Yeah. But it's hard to get, and even the Australian Opens, you'll find that it's still not. No, because the crowds aren't. The players don't turn up, which means the crowds don't turn up.
No, and I suppose, and we've both Clint and I have been quite. Oh, okay, all good. Right, Clint and I have been both vocal about Liv in terms of what they do for the sport, and they bring top players to Australia.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, the Australian Open got, they got Minwoo Lee, they got Cam Smith, they got Neiman, but in terms of Scotty Scheffler didn't come out. Yeah. Imagine.
And not lots of big names. There was a couple of big names. Yeah. But back in the day, when I started off in '97, the first Open I was involved in, we had Greg Norman. The crowds were, and that was when he was at the top of the game. Yeah. I remember we had a 4-hole playoff between him and Lee Westwood, and that was Lee's first tournament win. And it was amazing to have a 4-hole playoff. The crowds were massive. But then when Greg left, the numbers continued to dwindle, and the players weren't coming out, and they weren't coming from America, they weren't getting paid enough. Why would they leave America? For the money they're getting paid there, and the PGA had them ransom, why would they leave to come out and play for a tenth of what they're playing for in America?
100%. It's all business, right?
Absolutely.
But the people that bag on Liv don't understand that we've been starved of these top-tier golfers for so many years. And John Rahm, I don't know if you went to Liv at all.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
His presence just on the golf course,
huge. But it's one after the other. You think, he's not there. It's the next.
Then you got DJ strutting down the fairway.
Yeah.
You got Phil Mickelson. It's just
and the interaction with the crowds and interaction with the young people as well, which is huge. So that's pretty amazing. So to have that event down there was really cool, but it wasn't successful. So they stopped it. I was there for about 6 years, and then from there, when I got my first superintendent's role at a golf course called the Sands Torquay in Torquay, I was there for 5 or 6 years, and then we had a televised event there. We had the first short game event, so we had it's called the Surf Coast Knockout. So we played 2 rounds of 18 holes, and then we had the Saturday was a knockout round, getting down to 36 players on the last day, which was televised on the last day. It was a number one player, play number 36, working in only playing 6 holes. So after 6 holes, knockout, back again.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. The guy that had to have a playoff to get his last spot in the group, Scotty Laycock won it.
Yeah, okay.
So it was amazing. He played number one, who was Peter O'Malley, and Peter was killing everyone. And Scott played Peter on the first round and knocked Peter out. So it was awesome because it was a match play event. It was really cool. So then after that, left there and was really lucky and fortunate enough to get the role over here at RA. And, you know, I've loved every second of it. Love Adelaide, love living here. The weather's amazing. But the course, you know, people that are in golf, that have played golf, played at RA would understand, but I think if you don't, you sort of don't grasp the concept. But it is such a wonderful place. It's beautiful. Yes. It just has this aura about it. And when you walk in there, it's really old school and it's traditional. It's wonderful. So I'm pretty lucky to be there. Yeah,
I mean, I come from a cricket background, so Adelaide Oval for me was
same sort of feel.
Like the fact that they were able to keep the old brickwork in the members section at Adelaide Oval. So, you know, I remember when I first came on at Lawnhub, my first winter at Lawnhub was very quiet. So I drove for Clint in the Water Pro car, and I did a few deliveries out to Royal. Yeah. And you just go through the gates and it's like, this is Adelaide. Come on now. Yeah. Like, and
it's amazing.
It's beautiful. Like,
and you know, the old traditional, the clubhouse hasn't changed. It's the same building as it was back in the course was started in 1906. The clubhouse is in the same spot, same style. It's just expanded. Yep. So same sort of feel. We walk inside, the floor still creaks. It's still the fireplace during winter is beautiful. It's fireplace. Members turn up and have a coffee, read the paper, have some breakfast. It's really it's full of soul, really, and it's homely. It's a beautiful old clubhouse, and bucking the trend that most clubs in the country, if not the world, just continue to build big, beautiful facilities. But with that, you lose a bit of that nostalgia and you lose a bit of that soul. I think they're beautiful new ones, but they just don't have the character of an old. Yeah. And it is, you know, I don't know how the clubhouse is nearly 120 years old and it's still the same. So, you know, you walk up the hallway and there's still a lump halfway up it that you go up a slight ramp and it's, you know, it's all that stuff. So, yeah, it's a pretty, and the course realistically hasn't changed in the 120 years it's been there. Yep. There's been alterations, but nothing significant. Some of it hasn't been touched at all. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, obviously, Royal Adelaide, you know, the top 4 here in Adelaide are obviously, and the golfing here in Adelaide is not as big as the East Coast because, you know, there's the population and, you know, obviously there's a lot more money on the East Coast, but the 4 main courses, and especially Royal, is what was it, 6?
It's about anywhere from 9 to 12 in there, so depending where you go. But I think, you know, it's really hard to keep rankings these days because there's so many new courses coming online and all those courses that are there continue to get pushed out. So we really are fighting hard to try and stay in that top 10 to be relevant, just to keep contact with it. And I think anyone from Adelaide would understand that if you picked up Adelaide and moved it to the eastern state, it'd be spoken about in a different way. So because it's Adelaide, people have a perception that it's Adelaide, let's not worry about it. Yeah. But if you picked up Royal or the other 3 clubs and put them in Melbourne and the Sandbelt, they would hold their own any day. And I have no doubt that we would sit probably higher if we were in the Sandbelt. It's because we're not in the Sandbelt, so we get a few points taken off.
Yeah, that comparison. So I used to work for Drake Supermarkets, right? Yeah. So you know them, you do, you don't, whatever. But I'd always say that the store that I was in, if it was a Coles or Woolies, would be 30 to 40% busier.
Absolutely.
And nothing would change. No. All you do is change a sign out the front. And
it'd be different.
Like you said, you pick it up and put it on the East Coast or on the Sandbelt. I 100% understand that.
And a lot of people will turn up and play it for the first time and go, wow, I didn't expect that. And you're like, well, it's because it doesn't get spoken about like the Sandbelt Club. So we've done some construction works. We're having Renaissance Golf Design, which is Tom Doak and his business. And those guys getting involved also lifts the profile. So we have people from all over the world coming out and want to play just Tom Doak golf courses. So we have guys who fly in from Scotland or America and play and then fly out again back to Melbourne and play and then home. So it is a bit of a destination for them because of the train line, but 2, because it's got the it's got Renaissance Golf attached to it. So it's got that feel to it that, as I said, if you picked it up and moved it, it'd sit a whole different ranking.
Well, I mean, I think the first year Liv was here, was it the Majestics all wanted a golf day at Royal?
Yeah.
Because, you know, like...
Yeah. And we've had them last year. We had those guys come out. We had... there was Lee and Ian Poulter
Yeah.
and was it Hendrick? I think
Yeah,
Stenson.
yeah.
Forget now
Yeah.
who the other ones were, but they loved it. They were out there all year, for a whole day doing video footage, and they had a little 17A, and they sat there and they come through the clubhouse and they loved it, and they were very approachable. But to have those guys and having them all want to play it, it's difficult because the course is so full leading up, and as all courses are in SA, Liv has bolstered it for everyone. We just don't have it's hard to go, okay, Mr. Smith, you've been a member for 30 years, but you can't play in your time slot because we've got someone else. We've got to try and allocate some tee times, and if those guys turn up on a whim, it's hard to get them in.
Absolutely.
Like anyone. It's not that we're too elitist, it's just we can't physically get them
reality.
in. Exactly.
It's just the reality.
So it's hard to get them on. So we've got to try and get that more accessible to them, but they all want to come out and have a game, and it's great having some guys that are involved in golf here, and guys like Wade Ormsby, who's a member at RA and really passionate about it as well, and he's also friends with some of those guys, and he's always saying you got to go over and have a hit because it's it's pretty special. So it is. It's as I said, it's just the way where it sits in the nation in golf. It's because it's been a close relationship with the other Royal clubs, so Royal Sydney and Royal Melbourne, and we've had, I think it's 9 Australian Opens. So we've got footage back from 1932 on their website from the 1932 Aussie Open. It was a bit of a sandpit in black and white, but it's amazing to see the footage back then. So there's been a long, strong connection with tournament golf in Australia at Royal, and same with the other clubs. I think that holds it in a different level as well than other clubs.
Yeah, wow, it's I mean, like you said, people fly from all over the world to come play Royal Adelaide, which, Adelaide's known for its, for its wine and for its, entertainment and that sort of stuff. But golf, and I think YouTube golf as well has had a massive impact, especially golf. That's how I found myself back into golf after many years off. But, like the accessibility that people have to places these days in terms of like just being able to see, because there would have been people that would not know what Royal Adelaide looks like.
Exactly.
Right. And I think there was a flyover video from, 10, 15 years ago, and you say it hasn't changed much, but like it's always nice to see like, cool. I remember seeing that, things like that.
Yeah. And I think you're right with the YouTube golf and how it blows up and all the young guys around it. And that's why I love walking around Liv and hearing kids that are walking around. A lot of them don't play golf and want to know, and they want to know about the golf course or how to become a member here, or they're all now going to the driving range and hitting golf balls, and obviously COVID blew that up because you couldn't do anything except for go to the driving range and hit golf balls, and then all these young guys that were normally playing football and cricket and tennis are all getting back into golf. So, and that filters out to every golf facility. That's not just golf clubs, but there's driving ranges and ex-golf and all the other stuff, and all the way out to the small country courses. And then golf shops, golf apparel, all that stuff's blown up. And then you get the YouTube stuff where they're using different clubs, and all these young guys are then getting into their different golf clubs and talking about different degree wedges. And I'm like, these guys are off 32 and they're all after a different degree wedge. It's like, okay, fair enough. And they're all happy to spend their money, but it's gone berserk, which is great for golf. And that's in those golf clubs now. Well, more golf clubs now have waiting lists, and it's harder to get in, and which is another good thing, because it means that golf clubs are stronger financially, which means they have the more control of their destiny, but also then some finances to put into golf courses, which is always a tricky subject, because it's all about money coming in and looking after the clubhouse and the membership, but they're there for the golf course.
That's
and
right.
Usually gets left behind, but it's important that continues to move forward, and I think that the COVID has helped that with income coming in from golf and membership. It's great.
Would you say that now the way that golf is, say the memberships at the top 4, Royal Adelaide being one of them, it used to be more so like, we'll go to the clubhouse for dinner on every Friday night, and the golf was there, but you never played it. But now more people are playing golf.
Absolutely. And they want bang for their buck. They're paying money, whether it's because their wife's saying, hey, you've just paid X amount, you're not playing much. So there's a lot of people that play every week. It used to be that people would play, and particularly our club, but the clubs would be a member and they'd go play maybe once a fortnight. But now it's so much more than that.
That's good.
And there's guys that'll play 2 or 3 times a week, and so which is really great, because the clubhouse gets used and there's a really good feel because there's always people around. But it does put pressure on golf courses, and you get courses that are having from 200 to 250 a day.
Wow.
People play, so that's a lot of golf. It's a lot of wear, and then during summer they can recover a bit, but during winter it's so much pressure on the golf course, and then they start talking about the course condition. Well, we can't get on, but then there's the course condition's not great and bunkers are no good. Well, that's because you're having 200 people go through every day. Yeah. And you imagine 200 people walking through your garden every day. By the end of it, you wouldn't have much of a garden left. You wouldn't have much grass left. So it's just that continual wear, and that does come at a cost. So there's, in theory, golf in Australia is too cheap. When you got people charging $25 for a round of golf for 4 hours, what sporting event would you go to and go there for 4 hours and watch it, let alone participate in it for $25? So there needs, go to anywhere else in the world but unfortunately, the golf clubs that are charging $25, the members or people that play there probably expect it to be the same as every other high-end clubs. It's not quite the way it works.
It's not the way it works at all.
No. So there's that scenario too. But golf definitely has become, the numbers have blown up for everyone, and the amount of golf being played, it doesn't matter what club you're at, has blown up.
I mean, I'm like Matt said before, I'm a member at Sandy Creek, and one of the things you talked about before, like driving ranges, we've now got a driving range, ball dispenser with tap and go, so people can hit golf balls after work because the clubhouse shuts at a time, and we've got
revenue to be made out of that,
and we've got a light set up now, so if it is dark, you can hit golf balls, and 24 months ago, like.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen. And now imagine there are people now that are using that and getting more into golf and getting more addicted to it, and then it just continues to snowball. Yeah, and that happens, and that also affects us. Doesn't matter what level of golf, because people always want to go to the next level or the next best thing, or they want to work their way up. So we've had a waiting list for very long, or forever. Yeah, of course. And the waiting list is quite big. It's because the guys that are playing at courses want to they want to go play at the best course, or they want to be involved in those clubs, and that sort of filters out. So it doesn't matter where golf happens, it affects everyone. Yeah. So we all get something from it. So we're not like during COVID, it didn't affect us because we didn't make any more money out of it because our members are our members. We didn't have any green fee players, but the amount of golf being played was crazy, and they all loved it. It was funny enough. There's no competition, and they all love that there's no competition. As soon as COVID stopped and we're allowed to have competition, they're all back into competition again. So it's a bit of a. Whereas over in the UK, competition's usually only twice a week. Yeah, okay. But over here, it's every day. Every day. Every day. Yeah. It's all about playing and winning, and so obviously it's all about you go to places like Vietnam. They love gambling over there. It's all about they'll gamble on each other's golf. And there's that competition. It's not so much club comp; it's individual comps within amongst the group. So Australia's a bit different. They love the competition, and they love to have you've got to be in a comp, and then it's a bit of a double-edged sword again, because a lot of people get a bit nervous about going in a comp, and they don't want to see their name up on the board that's got 12 points because it's embarrassing, so they may not go in it. Whereas some people don't care. But if you didn't have that comp, people would be happy to play and not worry about it. You can pick the ball up and move it away from the bush, because we're not playing for sheep stations. But now it's in a competition, it becomes it's all about the rulings and the whole. It's crazy. It's funny. It's funny you say the like 12 points, because everyone's had a day like that. Oh yeah, everyone. And I think, and I remember like I used to get really nervous on the first tee at Sandy every Saturday morning, but now it's like if I pull it left, the bloke next to me is going to pull his right. Yeah, like it doesn't matter. It's just the way it's going to go. Yep. And it's everyone's hit a bad shot, but I think the most addictive thing about golf is you can hit the most horrendous golf shot you've ever hit in your life, but the next one is a tour level. Yeah, and that's shot, what brings you back. And that's what brings you back. It's usually the 18th, what you need, just that one on the good drive. Like, where's that been all day? Yeah, but that's what it's about. It is that when you flush it, you think, oh, this is amazing. Yeah. I just got to get better at it and do more of those. Yeah. And it is a part of that going for a walk. They all say that golf ruins a good walk, and it is walking around on a golf course. It doesn't matter where it is and how it sits, but it's just you're outside. You're a part of nature. You're walking around. It's a beautiful aspect. It's quiet. It should be stress-free. It's not, because people get wound up about it, want to smack everything, but it's just that it is a really good pastime, and you see why a lot of people that we'll get some members who work there like 103 and they're out there once or twice a week playing golf. It's amazing. Yeah. That's when you get out, having a chat with their mates, playing golf, stress-free, hitting a ball around, and away they go. There's not many sports. One of the things I love about golf is you could be 87 and playing against your 15-year-old grandson and still beat him. Yep. It's competitive. Doesn't matter what level you are for the handicap system. So that's the best part about golf. No other sport is like that. But it doesn't matter how good you are or how bad you are, you're competitive. Yeah. And I think ages, sex, doesn't matter. No, it's awesome. I think one of the best things about golf as well, like I'm a footy fan as well, you can't just go and play footy out in the MCG. No. Like, that's right. You can go, if you're willing to, you can go and play the courses that Tiger Woods played in his prime. Yeah.
and in shooting 30 under.
Absolutely.
Like,
you can travel the world and play.
Yeah, that's right. You know, if you're willing to, of course. You know. I don't think really there's any amount of money that will get you on the MCG Grand Final to have a kick.
No,
you know what I mean?
Nope.
So it's not happening.
No, that's right. And I never thought about that, but you're right. You can play any course anywhere within reason. And you've got a planning and might cost you money, but you can play and also travel the world. You can head to Italy or head to France or wherever, and you can take your clubs with you and go over here. And some of the courses are amazing all over the world. It doesn't matter what language you speak, where you are. It's all the same, no matter what you do. It's the same game all over the world. So it's pretty awesome.
You mentioned Vietnam. Have you, like, in terms of toured the world for golf, whether that's work or pleasure or anything like that?
I haven't been to the Asian countries, but I've been to Scotland and Scotland, England, France, America. Looked at courses and ranging from good ones to the best. So I've been lucky enough to walked around the St Andrews and those ones in Scotland, and down through some amazing ones through London, through Sunningdale and Swinley Forest. Two different courses, but amazing, typical English style. Then over to the US and done Pebble Beach and Cypress Point, and on the other side to the National Golf Links and Shinnecock, and incredible. They're all different, and for all different reasons. They're all incredible. So I think all golf courses have their thing, and they all have all that. They're all different. That's another good thing about golf, is they're not just the same up and back thing. So I've been pretty lucky enough to travel with work, and been lucky enough to be taken with groups to tour golf courses, and we're all dealing with the same thing. Every golf superintendent deals with the same thing at different levels, and we all talk about this. What we pretty much do is manage expectations. Half the time that's our job, but it is just different. Might be different grass types, but it's still the same issue, and it could be different levels of membership, but it's all the same issue. There's just different levels of them. Yeah. So it's a great field to be in, and to travel around and visit some great courses is awesome to be able to do it.
I mean, like St Andrews, you play your cards right, you can play that course.
And they shut that Sundays, and then it becomes a dog park.
That is so crazy. I watch Rick Shields on YouTube, and he was the one that said that, and I was like, nah. And then they filmed there on a Sunday, and there's people sitting having picnics on the 18th green.
You walk around, the town embraces it. So you go to a chemist, and it'll have golf memorabilia or golf pictures on the walls. It's based around, so it's a university town, but it's just golf centric. And you just walk down the street, and I go through Gap, and all of a sudden you're on the golf course, and there's like 7 golf courses in St Andrews. They're all the St Andrews, and it's all the different names, but the probably the most recognisable, most famous golf course in the world on a Sunday becomes a public park, and it's not owned by members, it's owned by the town, sort of thing, and away they go. And it's incredible, and that's the good thing about that stuff. They haven't bucked tradition. It's still the same old thing, and the holes haven't changed, and the holes are really eccentric. There's how many is there? There's only about 8 double greens. There's only about 10 greens there. So it's amazing, 2 and 7, 1 and 17. So every green adds up to 18. So
that's right.
It's amazing how they did that back in the day. I don't know. I can't tell you how old it is, but it's how they built it, and it still stands the test of time now. But it's really cool how they haven't messed with it, and they just haven't bucked. They haven't gone with that. It's a private golf club. This is what we do. That's just members, general public can go for a walk and
it's crazy.
take the dogs out there on a Sunday.
Because of course there are courses that are complete. You cannot come in at all, like Augusta.
They'll shut you down.
Of respect, because that's what Augusta is.
That's how they want to do it. That's how, and that probably holds them at a different, not a different level, but a different genre. That that's the elitist. Some of the money that's spent in the US is ridiculous,
phenomenal.
In places like Augusta, I think the way it works is there is no membership fee. It's just at the end of the year they divvy up the cost to run it divided by the 30 members or whatever it is. And you go to places like National Golf Links, I think there's 300 members, and of those 300 members, there's only 90 members that vote. The other 210, doesn't matter whether you're Bill Gates or the president, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what you think, the 90 vote, and the other 200 or 210 just have to suck up what the decision's made. Until someone dies or drops off that 90, the next person gets voted into that 90 of that group. That's it. So sometimes the exclusivity in those places is next level, but that's how they roll.
So are you a golf fan? So do you follow the golf? No. Are you into the golf? You just like looking after the grass?
Pretty much. I'm not into. I only play once or twice a year, so I'm not a golfer. No, I'm not a golf tragic. And I think I got into it because I love the outdoors and, and the look and how it presents and what I can do. So that's some guys get into it because they cannot get enough of golf, and I've got staff that have come on board because they're a mad golfer and they think that's a way in. If I go prepare golf courses, I'll be able to play golf all the time, and I think that soon wears off.
Absolutely.
So they all then eventually it's like, oh no, I can't be bothered. I've been here all day.
Yeah.
So I sort of keep my finger on the pulse a little bit, but I don't. I'm not. I don't watch it on TV. I watch it for a bit and then get a bit bored. So I enjoy going to the golf. Enjoy going to live and like anything that's significant I'll go to watch and probably to see how it's prepared as well to see the golf course. But I'm not a huge golf nut. Some guys some guys are right into it. A lot of the members are right into it. They can't get enough. They'll get up early and watch the golf and but not me.
That's all right. I mean, I suppose. If you're a tragic at work, but then you're also a tragic of what you do for work as well, it gets very tiring.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a lot of guys will, as I said, come on board because they love it, and the staff get the ability to play golf at work at certain days, after certain hours, and some of them will, and when they turn up and they want to play every week, and then by the end of it, it's like they might play once or twice a year. Yeah. So they'll go through a stage where someone new will turn up and they'll all want to play for a bit, and then it wears off. It goes up and down, but it is a bit. Some guys get into it because of that. Some guys I've got that work for me that have never played golf. Yep. Not into it. Wouldn't know anything about it. Not their thing. They just enjoy what they're doing, and that may be the mechanic or the hort guys or even ground staff. Just not for them.
Yeah, so, okay. There you
not
go.
into it.
Yeah, well, that's there's people that work at Lawnhub that know nothing about lawn.
Yep.
They just looking for work and they like what they do, and that's it.
Which is great.
One thing that's quite unique about the Royal Adelaide is the train lines through the golf course. Yeah. So, I've only ever been there once to do a delivery, and when I drive past, I put my head out and see through the gate. Yeah. Other than that, I know nothing about the course. So, what does is it a problem?
Well, it's not a problem. It could be. Because it's operable. It runs every 15 minutes. The train goes through, so it runs at probably. It seems like it goes pretty quick. It's probably only doing 50 to 60 k's an hour. So it's if there was an open there or something. If there's an open, they'll shut it. Yeah, okay. That's the only time they'll shut it. There's a lot of backlash when it happens. Yeah. But the residents, it doesn't get used very much. But it's the train that goes out to Grange. So there's only 2 more stops past us. Yeah, okay. Which is I think it's South Grange and then Grange, so you can get to the beach if you wanted to at the end of the line. So it's been there forever. That was there before the course. Yeah. So the story is they all caught the train out, steam train, out to the area, hopped off the train, and then walked over the sand dunes and worked out and then bought the land that surrounded that area. So it was on both sides of the train line. So the train line's been there forever. It was the pro shop was a train station, so that was where a little part of that was the train station. And when I say train station, it was probably a little room that was 3 metres by 3 metres, a brick block that had sold a ticket out of it. The station was literally some wooden platforms where the steam train pulled up and they hopped off. So it literally was right at the first tee. They just got off, come to the clubhouse, all went at the first tee. So we got photos of the opening day where the carriages pulled up and you could imagine what the inside the trains were like. They're all leather doors. It was beautiful old machines, and they'd hop out and go play golf. So it's been there forever, and then at some point they obviously went from steam trains to diesel trains. So it's still a diesel train that runs through. Probably still a half of Adelaide's network's diesel. The concern for the club is in time that it may become electric. When it becomes electric, it's a whole different ballgame because there's power lines and structures that go through the middle of the golf course, which just detracts from the look. Currently, we're all about clean, nothing that's noisy. It wants to be a really sharp view rather than having something that's intrusive in the way. So that is an issue for them, but they feel that will be a long way away, if ever, because the train line gets used infrequently, and if that were, it's hard to justify. It wouldn't be a small cost to put electrify that line. So that'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 20 or 30 years. But it's a really unique thing. I hear there's only one other one in the world that has it running through. There's lots of golf clubs that have train lines on the side.
Yeah, next to it,
but not dissecting it and literally right through the middle. So we have 2 holes. So you play the first hole plays up the side of it, and then the second, depending on what tees you hit over it, and play down the other side, and then you play the other 9 or 10 holes, and then 14 you can play over it again. So there's 2 holes you play over it, and there's the first and the second you play sort of beside it. So it never used to be part of the course. If you're landing on the train line, played where where the ball lied, whereas now with legalities and with OHS, all that stuff. So now we have the fun stuff. We do have, it's out of bounds now. So your ball lands there, you have to pick it up and drop it in wherever the rule is and where it crosses that line. So and pick it out. So which is understandable, but it's also a shame. I enjoy some members be sitting on the top of the train line with his golf bag, having a swing off some sleep or rocks or whatever, and terrible shot. Some guys used to carry an old club in their bag for just in case the ball got there. So, and you can imagine doing that, and then the train's coming on. The train drivers used to get a bit testy on. There's a guy in the middle of the train line having a golf swing, and so on the horn. So you can understandably why it's changed.
Absolutely.
And we're still going through processes of making it easier or making it safer for people to cross. To have no fence and there's nothing in the way. We're looking at putting some sort of fence up to create a bit of a barrier and make it so you have to sort of slow down and stop before you cross without having gates. To have boom gates is another issue. Mm-hmm. So there's all those things we have to keep working through, and it never used to be an issue, but it's becoming more and more of a talking point or something we have to work on as it works forward. So, but it is pretty unique, and as I said, a lot of people come from all over the world. They know about it, and they want to come out and see it, and a lot of people don't think it runs and are shocked that, and it goes past the clubhouse. Between the train line and the pro shop would be 5 metres.
Wow.
It's really close. Like a golf cart can drive between the train line and the pro shop, but you wouldn't get too past it.
Yeah, wow.
So it's really close, and if you're not ready for it, it whizzes past, and people get shocked by it. So, but then you get other people that know about it, and then kids get down there with it, as we're used to as kids, 50-cent pieces and 20-cent pieces, and watch it go past, and then go try and find it. So that stuff still happens, but we've got to try and be more. The club is really wary of that and making sure that you stay back from the train line, because they come past and people get too close, and the train drivers get a bit nervous, then they'll call the train authority and they'll come out and try and say what's happening if someone's close by. So we've got to be really careful of that.
Of course,
it is a bit of a, because it's dangerous. We've touched wood, we've never had anyone injured, but we have had carts, we've had buggies just taken out. Members, particularly these days with electric buggies, they'll send them off and they'll drive by themselves and park near the train line or get too close, and then the train comes past and takes one out. So we've had a few of those get destroyed. So, but it is very unique, and it's quite, when you're up on top of the middle of the golf course, has a big sand dune with a rotunda on top of it. You get up there and you get a sort of a 360-degree view of the whole course from there, and because it's quite open, and it looks amazing looking across the course. Then you see the train, the 2-passenger train flying through. It's such a, you sort of get used to it, but then because you take it for granted, but then you do see it and you realise how unique it is.
Oh, it is.
To have a train run through the middle of it. It's pretty amazing.
Because I think it probably took me a couple of times to drive past to really realise, before I was back into golf, like, the train line goes straight through the middle. Golf course.
Yeah, right in one corner and then straight to the middle. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah, it's and it's one of those ones where I think people think we must hate it. But the club embraces it. The club sees it. That they would hate for it to ever be shut, because it's a part of the fabric now. It's been there forever, and it's a part of us. So the club's really affectionate towards it. They love it. We're just got to be mindful of how we manage it moving forward, or working with the train authority so that it's managed correctly both ways. Yeah, we're just very wary that they will put a fence up which detracts the place, or the power lines through it. So it'll be a shame.
I mean, it took them 5 years to do the Gawler line, so I think you'll be right.
I think we'll be right for some time. But it's, and you imagine the cost too. Like Gawler line, the amount of people that use it. Like it goes past, so many times a day, and you'll see one person on it, but during peak hours a few, but then during the day or late at night. And who's catching the train all the way to Grange at 11:30 at night? It doesn't happen very often. So maybe the weekends, but it's used certain parts of the day, but a lot of the time it's not. Yeah. So it's not frequently used.
So what type of golf course is Royal Adelaide? Is it like a linksy style?
Yeah.
Is it, it's not a parkland?
It'd be classed as an inland links. So we have a lot of trees, but they're in big groups, and they're a particular type. We have just pine trees. So of the two pines, we have Pinus pinasta and Pinus halepensis, so two varieties. The halepensis are a weed species, and we are trying to remove them. It gets hard to remove pines because people don't want to get involved, pulling trees out. So no, even though we plant hundreds and hundreds, it's a bit irrelevant. So we're particular on the trees we encourage, but they are just pines. So within the golf course, it's just pines, and there's another plant called colochis, which is a native, like a mallee pine. They grow naturally in there as well, but they grow in big groups. We don't just have them everywhere. So you can, from the clubhouse, you can see all the way to 9, and then it's just big open parcels of land all the way through. So we don't have, the trees aren't blocking the view. From the 8th hole, you could see the first 8 holes, and then the 11th hole behind it. So you can, from anywhere in the course, you see lots of other golf around it. So it's really open. We try and have the rough get up during spring and let it burn off. Becomes that linksy, long, wispy rough, which is brutal when it's green and thick.
Absolutely.
It eats your ball. So it does, and changes the course, the way it's played from season to season. Some golf courses, doesn't matter whether you turn up in July or December, it's the same, whereas we vary from season to season. So in middle of winter, it's getting sort of long and it's getting a bit thick, and then start of spring, it's tough and it makes the course narrow because you don't want to go, and you don't get wide because you get in the rough, you can't find your ball. If you do, it's a nightmare to get out. And then comes summertime, now it's burnt off, you can get a bit wider so you can find your ball. It's still a bit of a tough shot, but by about January that rough's burnt off and disappeared, then it becomes wide and you can go for it. So, and then you start to, coming into autumn, the rough starts to come up a bit. So it does change, and the look changes from season to season. So now we have that strong contrast of, we have a hard edge irrigation system, so it's green fairways, then anything off the fairways gold. So it just gets long and then it turns to gold. We have that strong, that sort of, when it's hot, looks great in the clubhouse. You have ribbons of green fairway, but dry rough in between them. So, and the trees don't disguise it. It's just rough and fairway. So in theory, we often talk about that the pro shop guys have always spoken about playing off the 18th tee and seeing how many shots to get to the 9th hole, which is in the other corner, because you just play your way down. You just got to land it on a fairway, but there's nothing in the way. You can play all the way through. So there's that sort of stuff you can. And we need the rough up. When I started 13 years ago, I started getting the rough up, and the members didn't like it initially because it was tough.
Yeah, of course.
And they didn't like it. But I said, but if you don't have the rough, there's no trees here. You stand the tee, you hit your ball into the 7th fairway, or if you're on the second, you hit the ball on the 6th fairway, the 5th fairway. It doesn't matter. You can get there in the rough and have another shot. You've got to have some penalty. You can't just be able to hit the ball where you like.
That's right. Yeah.
So you've got to be able to define the hole, but also make it a penalty. So that's how we have it. The wider you go, the more rough you get, the tougher the shot. That's how we try and define the hole, but also make it so it makes it it narrows it up, makes the course a bit tighter at certain times of the year.
So is the rough like a natural or like a native grass, or is it like a fescue, or
just whatever grows? So a lot of it's weeds, a lot of it's if there's any farmers out there, you'd hear brome grass and wild oats and barley grass, lots of that. But the more we're leaving that now, we don't water it, we don't cut it. So a lot of the rough we've never cut and we haven't cut for 13 years. A lot of it's now some native cooch in there, but also then we've got stiper and some wallaby grass all coming through, and native plants and little like things like chocolate lilies popping up and all that sort of stuff, which we want to encourage because we want to get that stuff. We want to have both a flora and fauna habitat within the course, so we want to encourage that. So by just cutting everything down and spraying broadleaf or spraying whatever it is, that detracts from that. So we try to believe it as we spend no money on the rough apart from cutting the areas close to the fairway, but other than that, we don't. We spend very, very little on anything in the rough. Don't fertilise it. Don't. We might put a little bit of broadleaf out at certain parts if there's a few thistles, but other than that, we don't touch it. So we want to encourage that natural rough, and it is happening. The native plants will drop seeds, and they'll eventually start to come back, and hopefully that'll start to overpower the weeds that are out there. So we that's our philosophy of trying to make it as natural as we can off the playing surface as natural as we can.
So what are the fairways there?
So it's a mixture of cooches. So we have it's common cooch. They call it Somerton cooch or Seaton cooch or whatever. It's just a name, whatever they want to call it. It's just and there'll be hundreds of varieties in there. So on the fairway, there'll be all different colour cooches. There'll be dark ones and light ones. There'll be some that are really quite open, some that are really tight. There'll be Santa Ana in there as well. There's been some line planting of some fairways, but every time I do a patchwork of some poorer cooch, they would have put Santa Ana because you can't buy the other varieties because it's common. So it's a mixture of everything. But there's also power. So we've been through a transition period where from 1906 to probably in the late 90s, it was two grass. It was cooch during summer and power during winter, and then the whole of probably the southern states all try to go back to pure cooch, and Queensland not so much because they were always cooch, but going back to pure cooch fairways, getting rid of the power to stop the power spreading onto greens. So that was a really big pushback in those days to make sure and make that a one grass fairway, one grass surface, with wonderful success on 90% golf courses, and the smaller clubs didn't bother because it's expensive. So that happened many years ago. So that was us. And then, but the last 10 years or 13 years, it's been an uphill battle for us to keep the power out, and because we're not a complete sward of Santa Ana or wintergreen or whatever variety people have, we're a variation. Some cooch doesn't allow power in and some does, and then some cooches or some of the power then becomes immune to the chemicals, resistant to the chemicals. You can't control it, and there's other methods of trying to get rid of it, and it goes around in circles and it becomes an expensive exercise.
Absolutely.
And then you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then there's to the detriment of the cooch. There's all these different scenarios. So we're a bit different to the most of the clubs. Most clubs are really having success still with pre-emergence and post-emergence. With some of their coots, they're finding it harder and harder, and even going out with light rates of Roundup on there. But then their cooches are stronger. They're holding up to that beating, which is Roundup will really beat your grass up. But if it can hold together, they're getting through and keeping them clean. So we sort of don't have that ability because we've got all the variations. If I went out with Roundup in winter, if I had a winter to be able to do it, I can imagine coming out of winter, I'd have cooch that'd take months to come out of dormancy, and then there'll be no power in them. And then they've got no cooch either.
Yeah,
so they've got thin, muddy fairway. So then there's a bit of a catch-22. Are we trying to provide a surface? Or is it what's the most important? Is it surface quality or is it purity? And for me, it's surface quality. And I think I've convinced the club that that's the philosophy we should be going at. It's all about presenting the course in the best possible condition. The playing service, 90% of the members wouldn't care less what it was, as long as it was a good service for the ball to be on to hit off it. And that's what it's about. Whereas some clubs, they're fanatical on power and power and ryegrass are the two most the biggest weed issues worldwide. It's not just in Australia, it's everywhere, and particularly ryegrass in farms, ryegrass in pastures and wheat paddocks is a nightmare, and power in most other settings and pastures is just as bad. So we are up against it, and power it's self-pollinating. So you only have to have one plant that survives a application of chemical, and that one plant will pollinate itself. So, and a power plant has a lot of seeds. So you might get 100 seeds that get pollinated and generate and then drop in the ground. And of those 100 seeds, they're all exactly the same as their parent, which means they are resistant to the chemical.
Yeah.
So now we've got 100 plants. And then you spread again next year, and that 100 plants can have another 100 seeds. And then you've got 10,000 plants. And then it just blows up. So we only have to have one plant, and we've got Roundup resistant power now. And then you think that's not what we want. That stuff's bad.
Yeah.
So we're creating that by continually going with chemicals and creating that issue purely because we feel that to be the best golf course, we need to be pure. I don't necessarily agree with that. And that's a really Australian-centric thing, and probably the US, but not the rest of the world. The rest of the world don't care. The rest of the world is all about surface. Surface first, and then we can get rid of weeds after that. You go to a place like St Andrews, anything grows. And you look at that, and there's like barley grass in fairways, and it's relevant. As long as it's good surface and it's cut, that's fine. Whereas in Australia, oh my God, it's the worst thing that's ever happened. People lose jobs over it, and golf clubs spend money that they don't have to try and get rid of it. And it's just one of those things where I often think, where the philosophy sort of they've lost it. They're spending money when they don't need to be, when they can spend money on other things and have a better prepared or better presented golf course rather than spending that money. And it's not cheap. We're talking tens of thousands to spend money on pre-emergent, post-emergent with little control. So it'd be different if you're spraying a backyard that's 90 square metres, but when you're spraying golf course that's 25 hectares, it's a lot of grass to try and cover, and then to keep at it, and you only have to have a bad year, or the weather is an issue. There's lots of other factors that create issues for us in power control. So, fairways at Cooch with power in them, and it's getting more and more. It's reverting back to being two grass. Probably we're still 90% Cooch, but there's power through it, and we're able to control the power now as a better service than we were 20 years ago. So we've got Trinexapac or growth regulators we can use to control that seed head and how puffy the power gets, so we can control that. Our greens are bent grass. Has 90% of, that's probably not right, probably half the golf courses in Australia are bent. The other probably half the other half be power, and of that there's probably hundreds of them that are sand scraps. But anyway, of the grass variety, it's probably half bent and half power. So we are bent. We do have power in them, as most golf clubs do. We're using some new chemicals that are coming out that are which is enabling us to keep them clean, and they would be 98% bent with a couple of percent of power floating about in them. So they're pretty good. We've had some good success with some new chemicals, again, at a massive cost.
Absolutely.
Power on greens is a different scenario because you can get a different ball roll or surface with power, whereas fairways is a bit different. Fairways, you're hitting off it, you're not balls and rolling along the top of it. So bent grass is about trying to be pure because, power has a small root system. It's susceptible to being drying out during summer, so you've got to treat it differently. And then it grows a bit more rapidly at the end of the day. It can get a bit puffy, which means your ball can bounce a bit. But again, the chemicals we have these days to be able to control that growth with regulation does help out a bit with the chemicals we have on hand. So I think the reason we went to one grass on fairways was to keep power out of greens, but I think we're able to be a bit better at that now. So I don't think we need to rely so much on having power out of fairways because we're able to keep greens clean. All the surfaces are the same other than that. So we have bent grass greens and every other playing surfaces, whatever grows. The cooch, whatever cooch it is, it's all cut at the same height, so we don't have different variations. We don't have tees and tee surrounds and green surrounds, and we don't stripe anything up. It's all one height. We cut everything at 6 mil, so 6 mil fairways, surrounds, tees, everything's 6 mil, and then we have rough. So all our mowers go out the same height, so it doesn't matter whether the fur mower can cut into the surrounds or cut into the tees, doesn't matter. It's all the same height. We don't mess around with other variations, and that's been the last sort of 10 years we've moved to that. Before that, it was tricked up a bit with green, and then there was an outside lap, and then we had an approach cut with patterned up approach, and then we'd have green tees that were cut a different height to the surrounds, and then the green surrounds were cut different height to the fairways. It was all these different heights. We got rid of that and went back to the old school one height, cut it all. So it's just literally feels a bit like a big velvet cup. It's been laid out over the surface, and we play on that without having these different variations and different heights.
It'll probably save you a lot of time as well over the week, and if you compound that over the year,
absolutely.
The amount of time
Machines
you save.
can jump from a fairway to a surrounds. We have different mowers now for different areas, but they can cross over a bit as well. And we've moved to joining up a lot of areas. So our front nine, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the eighth all join together. So that's through design. We've done that deliberately in the last 10 years. But if you had photos back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, that happened naturally because back in those days they were gang-driven or a horse-drawn gang mowers, and they couldn't pick them up. So they would cut the second fairway, then from the second fairway, I'll often go from the second tee, and they would drag it off the second tee, they'd mow a line to the second fairway and cut that, then they'd pull it over to the third tee and cut that, and then onto the third fairway. So they're all linked together because that's how the horse dragged the mowers around. They didn't, like these days, our mowers pick up when we move to the next fairway, drop down. Back in those days, it was easier just to pull them from one fairway to the next, and they all join together. So we've done a lot of that, and we're continuing to do that. Similar to our greens and our tees. So our green surrounds will feed off into a tee. So it's a natural walkway from you play the course, you play to the green, then from the green to the tee, you just wander over to the tee and away you go. So we haven't got these different areas of paths. We have very few paths. The paths are from, if we're going through a sandy area or through under some trees, we'll have a path, but a lot of it is grass. So you might hit from the tee to the fairway, which could be going through some sand, but once you're on there, you play the hole, you get to the green, you walk from the green to the tee, it's all just shortcut grass to the tee, and then away you go again.
That's my style, I reckon.
And it creates more shortcut grass, which people think's easier, but it's not. It's a hazard. Shortcut grass, you speak to someone like Tom Doak and listen to Tom's got on his Renaissance website, he used to, I'm not sure he still has, it was Tom's thoughts of the day, but he had little articles, and one of the articles he writes about shortcut grass is the best hazard in golf because the average golfer sees it and goes, open the shoulders up now, but all the shortcut grass, I'm right, and away they go, and they bomb it out there and realise now the ball is in a really, really bad spot because you've got to nip it off a shortcut surface, over a bunker, onto a green that's narrow that I can't stop because you're hitting off 27s, you've got no ability to hold the ball
absolutely
up.
not.
Then you're blind another shot, whereas a better golfer stands there and goes, now the shortcuts are relevant to him because he's just going for the green, so it's a whole different story. So it it also creates the average punter to not be so tense about it. It doesn't feel so tight. It's opened up, and he can open his shoulders and have a go. And you can, if in theory you could putt your way around the golf course and go to a par 3, if you had big enough balls, you could just putt your way up. Your mates would rib you all the way, but off the tee, you could putt your way to the green and probably come away with a 4 rather than trying to knock it on the green in 1 and walk away with an eagle, which everyone's trying to do. But on 27, that's probably not what you should be doing.
No, absolutely
but that's what there's all those abilities now. You can work your way on the golf course with a flat stick if you wanted to. You've got to get to the fairway, then away you go. But that's what we're trying to achieve with a lot of it, trying to make it is achievable to play your way around without beating up the average golfer. That's a lot of the issues with some golf courses. They think a tough golf course is a good golf course. It's more about being enjoyable. It should be about the 27 handicapper, not the 2 handicapper, because how many of those are in the golf club?
Yeah.
There's not many.
No, that's right.
It's all about the 27 handicapper. They're the ones that are turning up in masses to play golf. Anyway, got off the topic of
we
grass
love
variety.
it. We love it. So I was just monitoring the time because we've got to do our giveaways at 3.
Oh, yep.
So that's due in 3 minutes. But we'll quickly bang through some questions here. So as Clint mentioned too before, our fans are ruthless in some respects. But let's have a look. So I'm assuming we sorted out the mic issue. Yep. All right. Cool. Bearded Sith's back. Hello, Bearded Sith. So Bearded Sith's one of our OG listeners.
Oh, really?
He missed the last few. He's been away. So he said I look weird in that seat because this is Clint's seat. So that's funny. Any golf balls into the train?
Well, no, there's actually a penalty. If you hit the train, you actually get a penalty. So there is a story, whether it's true or not. It's a story that many years ago when the train station was still there, the story was a guy's hit off the second tee, landed on the train, and the train drove up. And they got it, threw the ball off the train onto the second green. So he's got there and won. So whether that's true or not, it's a bit of a it's a tall story. But that's one of the stories that gets around that some guys made the second green in one shot.
Kira, our other media employee, is just like, never been more interested in golf. Very captivating bloke. There you go. There's one there that I'll ask afterwards because I think we'll go on a bit more of a tangent on that. But Dylan, have you got last week's number?
I do.
Oh, look at that. And the first week's number? Oh, he's all organised. Oh, this is a great. So
Thank you, Kira, for coming out.
Thank you, Kira. So this one will be, we've got 1 more minute, but this one will be the last $500 Lawnhub gift card to spend on the Lawnhub website. So that'll be 4 total. So yeah, what's that, $2,000 in gift cards? And then the big one, which is come on, Adam. What is it? Husqvarna robot mower.
Oh, wow.
Valued at $3,800 or $3,000 cash. So yeah.
Wow. That's a good giveaway.
It's a great giveaway, and we are only able to do it because of our customers are so great. So we say it every week that we have the best customers in Australia. We're fast approaching 100,000 orders.
Wow.
So yeah,
It's amazing how the lawn or backyard lawns, how it's taken off in the last 15 years.
It's crazy.
It's mad.
It's funny because it's like, I remember being a kid and me and Dad were out there, you know, and Tim was the same with his, I think his brothers and his dad.
Yeah.
And like now it's like, if you don't have a Scotty, you're no one. And it's like, what do you mean? Like you just get out there and have fun.
People are fighting for them. They get them and do them up, and it becomes a whole other market. People are right into it, and then we're selling. We sell equipment, and people are now coming to us for our hand mowers, and they're not cheap. Like some of our hand mowers are just the pedestrians we use for greens are like mid 20,000s, and then people are turning up on our second-hand ones, and it's like these things are used for thousands of square meters, and I want them for 90 square meters. It's like, wow, they're right into it.
It's crazy, and like some of them, like there's a guy on Instagram, and he bought a new battery flex.
Oh wow!
Like brand new, like.
That's crazy.
Like, and he would have about 70 squares. Like,
Could spend money on other things than that, but that's mad. Like, and for the size of it too, you got to have a pretty good flat lawn for a flex mower because they're 22-inch or whatever they are. But the old little 14 inches are awesome because you get they follow the contours, but your lawn will want to be pretty flat for that sort of mower for that size of lawn. So, but something I love it because it becomes contagious. You get some guy that's got a great lawn, and this guy next door says, "I'll just better sort mine out." And you go down to some streets, and everyone's got a good lawn because it starts with one, and then it becomes a bit of a competition, and then away it goes. So guys having competitions amongst themselves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can talk about it. Like what I do in my front yard. I'm not sure if anyone's ever told you, but it's not as nice as yours, but we can definitely talk about that. But we got 86822.
86822.
Yep. So what's that? 1,400 orders last week, roughly.
Can you just that's the right number there.
I'm getting old, Dylan. 86822. Yep. Cool. So this is for the fourth and final $500 gift card.
It is, yes.
All right. Rip it. Rip and grip it.
All right. 86549.
Okay. It'll be Ashley L from Barnsley, New South Wales. Congratulations. That'll be $500. Can someone write that down, please?
Yes. What's the name?
Ashley L.
Ashley L.
Yep. From Barnsley, New South Wales. So she or he, it's spelt EIGH. The only Ashleys I know spelt like that are women, but I could be wrong. But
No idea.
No idea. But congratulations, Ashley. That's $500. That would be their first order as well. So
Happy days.
So they've placed a $200 order and got $500 back.
Happy days.
So
good on them.
Congratulations. All right, you got that, Dylan?
Yep.
All right, now for the Husqvarna.
So we go from the first number,
Yeah.
which is
Surely it's in the 70s.
7868.
It's 10,000 orders. That's crazy.
638 to that same number.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, send it. Who's going to win?
Big one.
Well, Dylan, you placed an order yesterday, I saw. Yeah, but Dylan cannot win.
Redraw.
So we got, what's that? 83512. Is that right?
That could be me.
83512. Yep. Stuart from Rosanna, Victoria. First order.
Oh, wow.
So he's either going to get a Husqvarna robot mower or he's going to get $3,000. We have a phone number here, but I don't have the Lawnhub phone, so we can definitely call him after this, or
Wow,
maybe towards the end if someone brings a Lawnhub phone in. Or just hit the camera, sorry. Yeah, wow. So 2 first orders. Like, it's crazy the amount of first orders people.
yeah.
And I think someone won the gift card second week. I think it was like his 5th or 6th order. So, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's one of those things now. People are able to find products clearly that for them it's commercial grade, because it's never been out there. It's always been, people would ask, where do you get stuff from? And you'd be like, well, it's hard to buy a 20-litre drum of chemical that we're using. It's hard, it's too hard. Whereas now it's a whole different thing, and that's why I think these sort of businesses and these products is what is allowing
absolutely.
backyards or front yards to explode and be high in quality turf. And they aren't lawns anymore. They're turf surfaces.
They're turf surfaces. That's right. And I'm a big advocate for, if you've got, like at my front yard, it's about 40 squares and I've got 40 out the back. I have no need for a 25 kilo bag. I would not be able to keep it dry out of the shed. It'd be hard
before you used it.
That's
again.
right.
Yep.
So I use Trojan out the back, which is 220 SGN, just because I got a dog. There's no point throwing a mini pro out there. And then the front, which is cut at like 4 mil, 5 mil with my Santa Ana green.
Yep.
It's I can't chuck 220 SG on that will burn. So and I'm a big advocate for Wetting Agent. It's my favourite product. It's so underrated. I remember when I first learnt about Wetting Agent, and I was like, I'm going to try that, and then my whole lawn transformed.
Yeah. Well, if you said to me what would be the number one bit of advice I'd give to anyone about lawn or about turf.
Yeah.
Wetting agents is the biggest thing, and there's always other things people talk about with soil structure and heights and fertilizer regimes and nutrients and all the stuff.
Means nothing if you can't get it in there.
Get water in there. So it doesn't mean you can have the best cup of coffee you've ever had.
Yep.
But if there's no water in it, it's terrible. You've got to have water in there for it to be able to be absorbed.
Yep.
And nothing will absorb in dry sand or dry soil. It doesn't matter how good the soil is. If there's no water in there, it's useless.
And like obviously hydrophobic soil, and that that's obviously one of the leading causes of poor turf is dry patch, hydrophobic soil, blah blah blah. See, I don't have, and this is what I said before, I don't have the qualification, but
So a lot of girls will say, sandy soil, it's, the water gets straight in, but just because it's sandy and water gets in doesn't mean it's staying there.
Yeah, that's
or
right.
that it's going in where the plant
100%.
needs it. It'll still feed through. So wetting agent is the biggest thing you could do, and I think that's, if anyone takes anything away from any discussion about turf, that should be your priority, making sure that you can get water or moisture into your profile and hold it there, and then you can put your other stuff on there. But without putting that in there, you're wasting your money. Because you put fertiliser out, it'll dissolve and either run off or go down the easiest avenue, which could be just a tube or a little air pocket that run all the way down, disappear. And then your roots can't get to it and you waste your money.
And especially like on a golf course with that amount of space, you don't want to waste all that fertiliser.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm sure someone will come up with it, and you guys probably will, but I don't know why there hasn't been the ability. I've tried to think about how to make it, but it's above my knowledge, is making little dosing units that can go into irrigation systems, because that would be, so we dose, every time we irrigate, wetting agent goes out. So we use it every day or every night of the year when we water, wetting agent goes out through the system. I just don't. I think there is a market for that.
Yeah,
that's created. That'd be huge.
There definitely is for the home space. The trouble is, and Clint and I have spoke about it before, is backflow prevention.
Yeah, I've tried all scenarios how to do it.
Some of these kits don't come with them, and it is so irresponsible of the company selling something that you're injecting into a main line without that. And all it is it's on the 7th page on the 6th line, and it's written in like tiny text. Must be back. It's so irresponsible. Like,
so that's sort of if you can get someone to have a kit that's made up with has a backflow in it, or whatever it might be. But I think if you can get that, so then it's just dosing it all the time. Because you're better off, rather than doing it. You are always better off doing it lots. A little bit often, rather than one big hit every 8 weeks to a certain extent. But it is just, if you can treat your water, it's a no-brainer. And then the lawn, your turf would turn around, and that's what it's about. It's about getting water in. So most people talk about, I've put fertiliser out and nothing's happening or whatever. There's your reason.
It's and I mean, Clint is very heavy on backflow prevention, obviously from his irrigation background. And in South Australia, you need a licensed plumber to install backflow prevention. Not everyone is a plumber, at home. So legally, in the eyes of the law, they can't install these systems, and legally you can't install them without backflow prevention. So I think definitely there is the market, and there is a company that sells a lot of them. I just think the education, and especially in the lawn pages as well. I say it nearly every week. I nearly leave them because some of the advice being given is criminal. It is borderline criminal, and it's frustrating because, and we spoke about it before, some people generally just don't know. But and if you don't know, you don't know. But that's why I always encourage people, if they find one piece of advice, just try and back it up with someone else, or at least try and find something that backs what they're saying. Because some of it's like the common one that we get is how to kill poa in kaiku. Very difficult because the chemicals used also harm the kaiku. And this person's like, just whack out this wintergrass killer. I won't say the brand. It wasn't them against the brand, but I was like, that'll smoke the kaiku. And he's like, I've been doing it for 20 years. And he put a photo up, and it was a complete different product.
You can imagine that happening all the time, because everyone's an expert.
Absolutely.
Everyone's an expert. And we get that in golf. Every member comes past, have you tried this chemical? Thanks. We've tried them all. It doesn't work. Or, but that's what people think. I'll use it at my place, and it's worked. It was probably a different chemical. You've used it once. You haven't been using it for 15 years.
That's right. Or in the golf course sense, like chemical resistant weeds and stuff that is happening a lot around the world. You might have like the homeowner who's got 40 squares can put out a little dose and be like, that's my wintergrass done for the year. Obviously you're not competing with the wind, you're not competing with people, 250 people. You don't know what they bring in on their shoes.
Absolutely.
I read and I'll cop shit for this, but I read a study of the wind coming over from Sydney over to New Zealand. There was a weed that popped up that they'd never seen before, and they couldn't track it, and they found that it was caught in the wind.
That would not surprise me at all, because the stuff that's, let's say a lot of the stuff gets spread around. So, and you think about us with our fairways trying to be clean with poa, and then you only have to go in the rough. Unless you're controlling all the poa in the rough, then how do you stop that? So some guys are having really good results on their fairways because they're also spraying Roundup in their rough, killing everything, which that's their style, and having shortcut rough, and it's dried off and burnt, but there's no grass out there. But what that does do then is allow them to have cleaner fairways. But we don't do that, so our rough's all up and long and wispy and So then as soon as the pollen goes to seed there, that gets blown in and rolls
Absolutely.
over from the golfers that walk through it. And it's, we're really up against it. So if you've got a backyard and you haven't got, and it's surrounded by a concrete or a fence, you probably haven't got so much pollen coming
That's
in because
right,
people aren't walking it in all the time.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference.
Do you spray any pre-emergence on the fairways at all?
No,
or-
so we've stopped. So I always have for my 30 years. I've always done it, but the last 4 years we've stopped. We were putting it out with really poor results, and we were timing it. So when I first started, we would put pre-emergent out probably twice a year, and it'd last about 8 weeks, and it would work really well. We're having great results, and there was an ag product, was Stomp or pendimethalin was always used back in the day, and then it got better. The quality of the chemicals got better and better and lasted longer and longer. But then you have products now that will last 9 months, which are amazing, and we were putting them out in January and we'd go to July and do it again. So we're getting great coverage. In theory, we're getting 18 months worth of coverage over a 12-month period. But because we're these common couches that have really big long root systems, and that's how they survived, and they go dormant, and they're a bit susceptible because they get a bit weak because they're not a great quality couch. All pre-emergents are root pruners. That's how they work. They cut the roots off. They'll destroy your root system. But if you have a strong plant, then that root system will regenerate and away it'll go again. That's why you can't spread on bent grass. If you knock the roots off on your bent grass on your greens, it's gone. Yeah. So couch, you can do it. It'll regenerate and away it goes. So you've got Sandarana, which has a relatively good root system, and it's quite aggressive and fibrous, but it's not very long. Whereas common couch can have a root system of 1 metre long, but it's not as dense and not as not as vigorous. So we were putting these pre-emergents out, which was cutting the roots off, and then couch was going into dormancy really early. It was coming out so much later. Then we had massive amounts of, we don't know whether the worm castings had anything to do with it, but we had lots and lots of worm castings, which we during the winter, which I don't know whether the pre-emergents were disturbing the worms during the wetter periods and making them come up. But since we've stopped, that has reduced massively.
That's interesting.
But also, our common couch gets smashed by mites, and because the common's really weak coming out of dormancy, we go and renovate, then we throw some fertiliser out. The common couch is trying to grow, it's trying to put some leaf out, which the mites then jump in it and destroy it, and then you have the growth retarded, and you can't get that growth to come back. We would have to spray 7 or 8 times with every 2 weeks to try and get rid of the mites, and then we get rid of the mites, but the growth still wouldn't happen because they'd inject a toxin, which means the plant won't grow properly. And to get rid of that, we'd have to go out with hand mowers and scalp areas down. It was a never-ending cycle. And then we started having to spray fungicide on fairways, which fungicide in greens at 1.5 hectares is bad enough. When you start having to put fungicide out on 6 or 7 hectares, it becomes a really expensive exercise. And we're so we're down this slippery slope of now we've got all these other issues happening to the common couch, including disease, which back in the 80s and 70s and 60s, they would have never sprayed fungicide out on fairways. That's ridiculous. So we're at the point where we're like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? So we've trialled some areas where we didn't spray it and where we did spray it, and we were having much better results with common couch hanging on during coming into dormancy and then coming out a lot quicker, recovering from renovations a lot quicker. And then we were having, I said, I don't know whether it's the worm castings with the pre-emergent, but we're having less worm castings. For years we'd have to have, was to the point where members would walk through it and it would just come off their wheels in big slabs of mud, would come off on greens. It was terrible. So we're not having those issues anymore. So we don't know whether that's related or not, but we've done, the last 3 years it's reduced by about 80% than what we were. So that's changed. So, and then we're getting a better service in winter. So we haven't got that really open, sparse, thin surface during winter. We're getting a better service. So we're still cutting fairways at 6 mil in winter now.
Yeah, wow.
And we're putting we're putting more Trinexapac out than we would normally, but we're not putting the other herbicides that are soil herbicides. The Trinexapac's a plant product. You put it out, gets into the plant, holds it up, changes its growth pattern, changes its vigour, but it also tightens it up. So instead of having these big pole plants that smother the couch, they're fine and they sit within the couch. So still cutting the fairways at 6 mil, they're nice and tight during winter. They're a better quality and they're a better surface because there's power in them as well. So we're getting a better surface now than we have previously because for reducing the chemicals. So, and we're not putting any post-emergence out. So we don't spray anything on fairways now other than maybe broadleaf once a year. And other than that, we just put out growth regulator, Trinexapac, and a fertiliser.
Yep.
We do it during summer, we do it every 2 weeks, but during winter it's every 3 or 4 weeks. So even during winter we still put it out, not because we're stopping the growth, we just want the power to be tight, tighten it up and make it a smaller plant.
Yeah.
So, and that's working for us. Other clubs, we feel like other clubs are probably, they're doing their thing, we do our own. We're not too fussed by what other clubs do, we do our own thing, and we may in 10 or 20 years time be so far behind the 8 ball because we're power and cooch, or we may find in 20 years time that other clubs are like, we can't control that power as well.
Embrace it.
That's so after I went to the other 150th Open in St Andrews, and we went and did, which was an epic, and walked around that. Then we went to Muirfield and North Berwick, and then went down to London, those courses, and they were all like, no, we just prepare what grows. It is what it is, because over there, in England, they've only got one insecticide, and that's a Aceleprint. Other than that, cannot use anything else, and they can only use it twice a year. So if they have an outbreak after the second app,
You're
too
done.
bad.
Yeah, wow.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
And then I went to France, and they were saying that over there they only had, so now they'd only have another 3 years left of fungicides. After that, that's
No
it.
more. Yeah.
So the chemicals have been taken off them, so they're having to deal with other ways of managing their turf. So they can't go out and spray pre-emergence and post-emergence and all this stuff to have purity. That's just whatever grows. Just fertilise it, water it, make sure it's healthy, and we'll cut it, we'll prepare it, and make it a good surface. That's their philosophy. Whatever grows, grows. So over here, we're really focused on services as well, absolutely. But purity is really high up in that, whereas we aren't so caught up in the purity on fairways, because it's about presenting a surface now for us rather than chasing purity. And I think it comes at a cost to clubs, whereas we're sort of changing, probably spending our money elsewhere rather than all throwing it out at that pre-emergent and post-emergent. With having, I say to people, if a doctor gave you some antibiotics and said, it'll probably knock off 60% of the illness, you'd be right. You'd say, why am I spending money and putting something in me that's not great, that's not really going to work? Well, then you'd go to something else, would you not? And that's how I'm sort of thinking, why would I spend money on something that works for 70% of the time? Because the other 30% then becomes resistant.
Yeah, that's right.
And then we're on a slippery slope. That's what's happened.
You talk about cooch mite. We had a really good question last week about cooch mite, and you basically explained the vicious cycle of cooch mite to a T. And there was a person in the comments as well, like just after this, I've been told that this product would do it, which was Malice Duo, which very good at what it does, but he just wanted to knock them down, which Ivermectin, Agador, Thumper, all the same. But it also gets to a point where it's like you got to change as well, because if the mites become resistant to that, then you're in big trouble. You got to
bear it up. So we use different chemicals. So there's obviously miticides, and there's also ovicides, which kill the eggs. There's other variations, and they don't last very long. You put a chemical out, within 7 days, those eggs have hatched and they're back. So you got to keep at it. You got to put often one chemical be next 2 weeks time, put a different one, or mix the two together, and then the next application have a different mix. Vary it up so they don't come resistant. But you've got to be in front of it. You can't let them attack, and once they've attacked, it's really hard to get them back. And my back lawn is destroyed, and the last couple of years I haven't sprayed, and it's getting worse and worse. So now I'm at the point where I've renovated, hasn't recovered. I'm sitting there, so now I went out with the mower and cut it down at 2 mil, just scalping everything off to try and get rid of that material that's been infected by the toxin that they inject, to try and get them to recover. Because you often go out there and you'll find that you'll do an inspection, you can't find any mites, but there's still no growth, and that's what it'll be. So it's about working out what you need to do, but also then mites are probably the only one that does that. Everyone else is pretty straightforward. Once you stop the issue, that'll probably come back. But mites are the only ones that you may stop the issue. There's no mites, but the damage is done, and you've got to maybe start again. And that I've known people that have had to returf, but it is about just maybe. We've had good results with scalping it back and then getting rid of all that material that's affected, and let new shoots come up and away they go again. So they never used to be an issue, but the last 15 years they're getting more and more of an issue, and I think that's to do with there's lots of reasons. Some years they're really bad. It depends on the weather, whether it's mild, whether it's been wet or whether warm. There's a lot of variations, but it is they are becoming quite a big issue. And for home lawns, if you'd asked me 15 years ago whether we should be worried about home lawns with mites, I'd be like, you're mad.
Yeah,
but
you're mad.
Now, because everyone's upset, because they're right into their turf, that's becoming an issue as well.
Yeah, I mean, I only, I've had them the last 2 years. I'd never seen them, because Dad's lawn was pure Santa Ana, then Kaiku took over, and that's all Kaiku 98% now, and apart from his Tahoma Green. Never saw it at Dad's place. I think my Santa Ana's about 6 years old. Got it last year for the first time. Got 2 or 3 applications out, got them under control. It was all good. got them at the back end of last season. Just didn't worry about it. Like I was over lawn at that point. It'd been a big year here at Lawnhub, and I was just like, I'm done with lawn for a while.
Yep.
And then did my renovation. They came back nearly straight away.
Yeah.
Straight after the
Because
renovation.
as soon as you're fertilising them,
that's
and
right.
because they want new growth. As soon as you fertilise and it grows, they're like, oh, happy days. You've just fed us. So you're going around. That's another vicious cycle. More fertiliser, try and get growth. More growth happens. Mites thrive on it because you're giving them something to feed on, and around they go.
So, and then I did one more application, and I had a really bad damage. Like when I talk really bad, it was this big, but my lawn's not very big. So that on a massive golf course, like that was not much at all.
Yeah.
But I literally just pulled all that material out and inspected it, and you could they're very minute,
tiny,
but you know what you're looking for. When you know what you're looking for, it's a lot easier.
Straight away you can see it.
And just top dressed it, watered it, and it grew back within about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But it's they are very vicious things, aren't they?
And then you got the Sandarana. We find that the better quality cooches, and then whether it's Sandarana, whatever it is, doesn't get it. It takes a lot for them to get affected, and they will do. But the common, because common's such a big, broad plant, so the growth points are probably twice as long or 3 times as long as compared to Sandarana. So you only have to have one growth point get affected, and all of a sudden you go past, and all these stolons are flapping in the breeze. You go past, and they're not even attached to the ground; they just grow in the air.
That's
and then
right.
you're like, what's going on? So whereas the Sandarana doesn't have that so much, but the commons are really bad. So after renovation, we'd have areas that with the size of this room that wouldn't grow, and you got the grass in there, but they're not doing anything. No. So then it become well, what do we can't continue to keep spraying all the time and keep putting chemistry out there. We've got to work out what we're doing and why we're doing it, and that's did some plugging in those areas. But then the last couple of years we haven't had to, because the turf is stronger because of the pre-emergent is there, and away it goes. So the pre-emergent, and if as I said, in a Sandarana lawn, it'd be great. If you had a common cooch lawn at home, I think you'd be struggling with it.
No, definitely. And it's I suppose that's the challenges of large areas as well. I talk about this much, but you're talking about the size of a room. If you're standing on that rotunda and you come over it, this much compared
and we've got patches of fairways. We've probably got all up maybe. So about 20 hectares of fairway, we've probably got 3 hectares that we have to spray of mites, and it just gets knocked around, and we keep chasing it, and then we renovate because that fairways gets thatchy, so you renovate it, and it takes ages to come back, and then you're fertilising it, and then that creates more. Then the mites take off, and then you're chasing your tail again. But then when we're back on top of it now, we've come out of the renovation. We've got most of it recovered, and we should be fine now. But you sort of don't think about it, and they tend to happen on the edges. So it'll come from the rough or around trees. Anywhere that's weak, they'll take hold of it.
That's so funny, because that's where mine start, on the edges.
On the edges, that's where they'll start. They'll come in from the edges, and they'll work their way in. And you go past, and they'll be just like, it feels like your grass has turned into sticks. Those little hard bits of sticks popping up. It drives you nuts.
Oh, that's so funny. And it's all scaled, right?
Yep.
So so if that person, I can't remember the person's name, hopefully you learn a bit more about the cycle and the viciousness of why it's important to especially to follow the label of each product, especially when treating something like mites. Someone had a question here about where is it? So Jack Chapo, so a Celiprin. So is that something that you guys use, or a similar product? Obviously, in the home lawn, grubs are an issue. It's been an issue since I was a kid. Obviously, a product like a Celiprin, like we were speaking about before, wasn't available to the homeowner at all, even though it's a non-scheduled poison. It just was not a product that...
Which is crazy when you think about it.
It is crazy. It's very crazy. But now, you saw it. We have all those 100 ml bottles. We have 2 pallets of 4 kilos, and we have 5 or 6 pallets of 10 kilos. It's very available now. Obviously, you guys would not apply granule, or because it'd just be cost.
It's too hard to do it. So we spray it as a.
So you use
we use it. We use it once or twice a year. So a Celiprin, when that came out, was two things with it. One of it was no scheduling. So no scheduling for when you've got staff applying chemicals. Always a bonus, because you don't have to deal with it's safe in theory. There's no scheduling. So being able to put that out, but also have a long period of cover. So we would, it sort of gives you that 4 to 6 month cover, but we would put it out that we'd always back it up, because they say there's variation, so you might put it out. But for us, we use it predominantly for stem weevil.
Yep.
Stem weevil can turn up in a green today, and then by Monday, it's half the green's dead. It'll just blow up, and then it just chews out the crown of your plant, and then it will just die.
Yeah.
So they're vicious. So we put those out as a preventative. So we'll put that out maybe in August for a cool season, put it out in August, and then we'll get through to probably now, and we'll go with maybe a different product, might be a spinner or another chemical that's a different chemical for that exact same reason.
Yep.
Rather than using a Celipin all the time, we want to make sure that we mix it up and try different chemicals. So, but we always use one application of a Celipin once a year, and then when that first came in the market, it was a game changer for all of us, because it was such a long period of cover, and it was more of a preventative rather than a curative. You could actually put it out there and it would prevent them coming in and taking it, and it would sit there for ages. Whereas it used to be, years ago, we'd have chemicals like chlorpyrifos, which is great chemical, but so nasty, and it killed everything.
Yeah.
And that's what used to spin me out. You had a Bunnings, and you'd have chlorpyrifos sitting on the shelf. I'm like, and you smell that stuff, and it knocks you over.
Yeah.
But yet you couldn't buy Celipin, which had no scheduling.
That's right.
So I'm like, well, you're getting mum and dad and kids dealing with chlorpyrifos. Within the shaker container where you could put it around their house.
Yeah.
Awesome on ants, but really bad chemicals. So we don't use anything like that. We don't use any schedule like S7s for that reason. So the chemicals we use these days are so much safer, and Celipin was probably the leader of that when that came out. It was amazing. So when it happened, but yeah, we definitely use it, and with great results, and we'll back it up with another type probably 3 to 4 months later, just so we mix up the chemistry, so we're not always putting the same one out. And I'm not sure what else you're having in the suite of chemicals, whether there's anything else, but that's something that I think as time goes on, having variations of the similar sort of thing to mix things up.
I think the biggest thing, especially in the home lawn, and like you said before, everyone's an expert, is is the label. So like if the label doesn't say it targets African black beetle larvae, then people jump up and down and go, you can't use it for that. No, it's illegal. Can't do that. You know. And I 100% understand. The fire ant problem up North Queensland at the moment. Like there's products that you could buy off the shelf that would destroy fire ants. But,
I reckon.
But because it hasn't been tested, you know, these people couldn't go out there and go, product A. And I'm sure there's products out there that aren't registered to treat black beetle larvae or stem weevil larvae at all, but it will knock them. And I think like you said, it is important to alternate. And you've got to do that with fungicides, definitely. Herbicides, obviously, as well.
I think it's like with anything, as I said before about antibiotics, if you went to the doctor, he would say, what did we prescribe last time? You can't just keep prescribing the same thing, because then it becomes resistant to it, and then you're in trouble. So like anything, you got to keep mixing it up. Particularly something that's effective, like not fertilizers, because that's a different scenario.
Different
but
chemistry,
definitely with chemical controlling things, whether it be disease or insects, you got to keep varying it. Otherwise, you'll end up the product you do have will become weak and useless, and then the best product you've got's gone. So that's been the Achilles heel for turf in the last 80 years, because every time a new product comes out, the last product's been no good. So the new product comes out, we all jump on that new product and we use it like it's the best thing ever. And eventually in 3 years' time, like, it's not as effective anymore. It's because we should have used it once and maybe went back to the old one and had to go at that one and then gone back to the new one and then the old two before that, because the stuff that's being immune to the new product may not be immune to the other one. So you've got to keep varying it up. But if you keep using the same thing, eventually it won't work, and then you're up against it.
I think these days as well, and not to 100% contradict what you just said, because that's 100%, I agree with that. I fully agree with, and I say it all the time, if someone's got brown patch, and I'm like, you can use this, but then please don't use it again and again and again.
Else,
I think you touched on it outside with Clint, or it even might have been the podcast you did with him, about the companies now and the research facilities and what they're able to do and the research that they're able to do. So they believe, that chlorantraniliprole, which is what Celipin is, doesn't build resistance from insects. They've got $380 billion more than I do. I'm sure the research they've done proves that, but I still think it's important to switch it up. I also think that you should always only use it within the label requirements. So, for example, do not do 10 kilos per 100 squares, for example.
Yeah, if it works on the label rate, don't think twice the label rate's going to be better.
Yeah.
It's not the way. Actually, sometimes it works the opposite way.
What does Clint say? More doesn't always mean more better.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly right. So it's one of those things where I think it's in everyone's best interest if you're using a Calibration to vary it up a little bit, because you don't want to lose that chemical that you've got.
Absolutely.
And it's in the Calibration's the manufacturer's best interest for them to have to mix it up as well, because eventually their product will become obsolete. I can name 10 chemicals out there that were awesome, and then no one uses anymore because we used the shit out of it, and now it's no good. If we had to vary it up all the time, we'd still have that product available, but we don't, because it doesn't work anymore. So we've lost it. So that's where we got to, you always need to be careful on how that works and not getting ahead of it and using the same product all the time, because eventually it will stop. And then if it's your best product, you've only got then your second best product to go to, and then you wish you had your first one,
which may not be as friendly to the human, and it may not be more friendly to the environment. And like you said, I remember when a Aceleprint first came out, I did not know how to pronounce it at all. And people today still don't know how to pronounce it. And I can always tell on the phone when someone's going to ask for a Aceleprint.
Yeah, he's not sure. It's a weird one. Try and spell it.
Aceleprint? That one. No, and great product. And use it within moderation. So for me and my old man's place, we live 5 to 8 minutes away. Like, it's not very far at all. So I know that I only have to do one application in 12 months. Because we don't get any pests on the label during the winter time. So I know the perfect time to apply it in my area, and I think that's important. And I stick to the label rate. Like, I'm not one of those people. I work here. I can just, this stuff still costs a lot of money. You know what I mean? And it is an investment. And we say that all the time. The products that we sell are an investment. They're not,
absolutely.
And you want them to go as far as physically possible. And, products like, Barricade as well. Spartan, all those, Aceleprint. There's also a lot of other products that we sell that you just got to use them within moderation. I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago in our email, like liquid iron, right? Beautiful. But you overdo it, does the opposite. Like you said, more it doesn't equal more better.
No, that's right. And you said moderation, and it's really important that people don't get carried away with what they're putting out, thinking, I've done it now, that's a great result, I'll put more of it out, because it costs you money, obviously, but also, as I said before, you're going to ruin its effectiveness, and then time to come you won't have it again. So, and it is following the label rates, because it's in the company has spent millions and millions on research, on research, and it's not just a 2-year job. They've been at it for many, many years to get the exact number, and it's in their best interest to get it right. They don't go, oh look, just whatever, put a bit out. If they're telling you it's 20 mil per 100, then it's 20 mil per 100, and don't go, I'll do a 10 mil now and we'll see how we go, because all that does is then again, like the antibiotics thing, if your doctor says it's 1 tablet a day for 14 days, don't do it for 3 days and stop. That's not how it works. If it says 10 days or 20 mil every 2 months, then do 20 mil every 2 months. Don't do 10 mil and then wait a while, because then that just you're feeding the insect, if that's what you're chasing, has a chance to be able to become resistant to it, and then you're up against it again. Follow the label rate, because it's really important. That's the stuff that makes it right. They've done their testing to get the best result, and that's why it's on the label.
And it may be boring, and I'm a fiend for reading labels. I love it. I think it's great. There's so much valuable information within the label. The SDS as well, not many people, some people may not even know what an SDS is, but on the Lawnhub website, each chemical has, all of our products actually, except for our merch, of course, there's no SDS or label for our merch, but I always encourage people to read the label, or by law, before using it, you have to. But the SDS is also, there's a lot of interesting information in there as well.
Absolutely. And it is important too, because the product, whether it be particularly like a fungicide more than most, but it tells you where to place it. Just because you're spraying it doesn't mean you fix the answer.
Nozzle selection.
All that stuff. Droplet size, nozzle selection, whether they need to water it in, whether they need to just water off the leaf, whether it needs to be drenched into the soil, whether it should be placed into the top inch of soil, whatever it is, you are wasting your money if you don't follow a label rate. If you put out an insecticide, spray it on the leaf, don't water it in, wait for 3 days, then you've wasted your money. if you're after a grub, because it's at the top, it's not going to get to it. So if you're after a disease, it's a root-borne disease or a leaf disease, you need to know where to place that rather than just putting it out and hoping that's the answer, because you're just wasting your money.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to harp on it too much, but there was a guy on Facebook within the last 2 months, so that'll skew with people if they want to chase me for what I'm talking about now. But this person jumped up and down and said product that they were sold did not work. Impossible. If you follow the label directions, there's no possible way that this product, if that's what you're chasing, could not have worked.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's
and people cut your lawn today and they put a broadleaf out, and you've lost all your leaf to put the broadleaf on, or if you put the broadleaf out today and you cut your lawn tomorrow, then you've lost all the leaf that the broadleaf was on. There's all those scenarios. You got to follow the labels for that reason, and that's it's really it's the instruction book on how to do it. And if you're not reading the instructions, you're just flying blind.
Yeah, blind leading the blind.
Yep.
So, and that you don't have to be a rocket scientist really at the end of the day, and there's more information in those booklets than there are on Facebook pages. I can tell you that for free.
Absolutely.
So, there was another one here that said, "What was your favourite lawn variety?"
I think, well, for me, it's obviously Cooch, and I think Santa Ana, particularly down here, Santa Ana is amazing because it's readily available.
Yep.
We've all used it. Most people have it. It's an awesome grass, and it can see that, but there's very little downside to it, and it's hardy. No grass is drought resistant. If you stop watering it, it'll go yellow and brown, and that'll be the end of it. But you water, it'll come back. Whereas you put a ryegrass out, it can look amazing, but you've got to be at it all the time. If you lived in Tasmania, then you go fescue and go ryegrass. It's incredible because fescue lawns are amazing, but a lot of work. And ryegrass in Adelaide's a little bit irresponsible because you have to water it constantly to get it to survive. So even though Cooch will die as well, but Cooch grass will hold on and it will come back when you water it. When ryegrass goes brown and dies, it doesn't come back. That's the end of that. Done. Start again, we'll have to reseed it, and then or it goes clumpy and looks terrible. So definitely Cooch, I think Santa Ana. I also think, I heard you guys talking about some other variations a while ago. I know wintergreen is really strong up in Queensland. I think wintergreen is also an incredible grass. It's probably less laboursome compared to Santa Ana, because Santa Ana can be quite thatchy.
Yep.
Some of our commons are amazing that we have on the course. That they get a bit more open, and they are an incredible surface, but then you just can't get them because you have to dig a bit out. But if I was going to put a lawn in, I'd be putting Santa Ana. There's the new varieties that are coming out. There's the new Tip Tough and all the other variations, and I have no doubt they're amazing as well. They're new. I've never dealt with it. I don't use it because we don't really bring turf in, unless we bring in Santa Ana to match if we do an area, but we may bring Tip Tough at some point. But there's lots of different. There's new grasses coming out all the time. But those paspalums came out 15 years ago, and they were the answer to everyone's issues, and then they disappeared as well. So things will happen. There's iron cutter. There's a new other Cooch varieties, and I think depending on where you live. So if you're going to do it, you obviously, I'll be looking the guys in the area what they've got, because you don't want to be selecting from someone from Facebook that's in Queensland, because that's irrelevant. Queensland's a whole different climate to South Australia versus Melbourne versus Tasmania versus Perth. Find out people in your area. There'd be, there's Facebook pages. You get to ask anyone. I reckon you just want to be asking people. But I think for a safe bet, Santa Ana, because it is bulletproof. It's hardy. It's quite resistant to most diseases and insecticides. They still get affected by it, but it's pretty hardy and it'll hold on to it. So that's what I would go with. It's it's relatively cheap. You're not getting something from interstate that's a different variety. Everyone's got it. Put it in, away you go. If I had a dog and I had a backyard that was big and and I was just a lawn, I wasn't using a cylinder mower, I'd probably go Kikuyu, even though it hurts me to say, because I spend a lot of time trying to kill it. It kills me.
That was the other thing I wanted to ask.
But it is a wonderful, and Kikuyu can be, if you cut Kikuyu with a cylinder mower, it can be next level.
Yeah, it stripes up too.
It's amazing, and you can get it really fine using Trinexapac, using growth regulators. You can get it really, really fine. Even just a rotary mower. If you get a rotary mower, get it down to 0, even sharpen blades up, and if you cut it twice a week, if you get a small backyard, a little 100 square metres, if you cut it 2 or 3 times a week, it'd be amazing. And it's hardy. You can't kill the stuff. If I had a dog, that's what I'd probably put in. But if I wanted a turf service, it was amazing. I'd be going Santa Ana.
Yeah, I mean, It's Kaiku was one of my questions because you said you don't generally spray broadleaf, but obviously is Kaiku an issue in the course at Royal?
Well, not really.
Not
So
really?
we have tiny amounts of it.
Yeah.
So we would have, if you walked around the golf course, if we put it all together in a big patch, we'd have 4 square metres of it.
Yeah, wow.
So we have little spots. We have little cup size plants through the golf course on the fairway. So we all mark it. So if we ever see it, if you haven't got a spray bottle with us, we put a flag in it, or members put a bit of a tee or a stick with a bit of paper attached to it, anything that can to mark it.
Yeah.
Then if we see it, we'll go out with a little paintbrush or a spray bottle and just give it a hit. So we have very little of it out there. So practice fairway is probably the worst. Most golf clubs practice fairways tucked in the corner and no one cares about them. But ours, you drive through. It's the first thing you see. So our 3 hectares of flat Cooch fairway has to be immaculate, because it's not. First thing you see when you drive in is that. So we have to prepare that like we do the fairways. So there's probably more kike in that because you're not out there playing on it, whereas on the fairways you're playing it. So, but it's very, very little of it. So we don't spend a lot of money, but we have over the years had a fairly big effort to make sure we keep on top of it. But we don't have much of it around. But it's because I've got more of my front yard than the rest of the course. My front yard is overtaken by it, but it's because it's so aggressive.
Yeah,
and mice will attack that. But it's fun. For some reason, you have the mites attack everything except for the kike in my front yard. It just takes over. But it's an issue for us, and it's an issue for lots of clubs if they're trying to be a Cooch fairway, and you don't want that taking over. But in a lot of small clubs, it's a wonderful grass.
Yeah,
it'll grow anywhere. Give it a sniff of water and fertiliser.
I was going to say,
cut it and away you go.
You even look at it nice and it starts growing.
Grows up. You see it growing up. Signposts. It'll come out the top of it. It's incredible how tall it'll grow, where it grows, and how it'll survive.
So my mate, when he moved out from his old house to his new house, and he was cleaning his shed, he had this picture frame on the shed wall, and he was taking it down. He saw a green shoot come through the roof. And he got on the other side, and the Kaiku got through the insulation
all the way,
and grew up the top
They're
of the
amazing.
shed.
You see the street signs with a pole, and there's sometimes at the top of that. It's an incredible plant, and and there's some wonderful golf clubs in the world that have polo greens and Kaiku fairways, and it just takes more maintenance because it's so aggressive. You've got to be you've got to be really on it because it'll get thatchy and scalp, and you've got to be controlling it. But it's just one of those things that it's a bit harder to control other plants that are in it. It's not as hardy as a Cooch, where it has a lot more. It's hardier with some of the chemicals you put on to control the plant, other weeds. But we don't have a huge amount. Luckily, there's other clubs that have lots of it that spend a lot of time, and have over the years spent a lot of time on chemicals like Drive and Monument, all these different mixes and rates to try and 2 or 3 apps to try and reduce it and get it to a small size to be able to then spray it. And so we go with mixes and just paint it and knock it over.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's this kind of stuff intrigues me, and people laugh at me, and my missus is like, you're a unique human. But like I said to you before the podcast, I do trials at home, and I've tried kike suppression in my front yard. Granted, it's only 40 squares, and I cop shit about that. Like you don't, but I can still replicate little trials, and. And the prodiamine trial that I tried at my old man's house was a Syngenta study that they were like, you spray prodiamine for 48 months, 24 months, sorry. So 4 applications, 6 monthly. And then for the next time after that, don't spray it and just see what happens. And I didn't bring any soil in, and all it was in a backyard, it's quite controlled in terms of what comes in. Dad used to struggle with poa really bad. He used to struggle with clover, and he used to struggle with sour sobs. Now, sour sobs, I know they're a big problem for us, especially out in the country. But that, so what would have been my 5th application, didn't do. Nothing came up.
Really?
Not a single weed, not a single poa plant, not a single clover plant. And I was like, it's pretty cool to do something, because he gets smashed big, like as you're talking about, when you don't suppress it or regulate it, it gets big quickly. And I think the first year it was maybe 80%. Next 6 monthly was 95%, and then 100% was. Look, there could have been little plants, but I didn't notice them. And it was just really, and I haven't done pre-emergent for the last 2 years at Dad's place.
Do you find have you found any different with not putting pre-emergence out? As in, obviously, maybe more power, but is the cooch any different from not putting it out? Probably haven't seen it much different.
There's patches of what was Santa Ana, because it was fully Santa Ana, and it's now taken over by Kaiku. But I have noticed that there are some Santa Ana, or it could be common cooch. I haven't got really 2 specimens to have a look at, but. Yeah, the Kaiku, the colour that it's got now is, like you said before, Kaiku is very susceptible to chemicals. Yeah. Especially the first time you apply Trinex pack. Oh my God! I remember I sprayed it, and 24 hours later, Mum rang me and she's like, "The lawn's grey. You've killed it." And like, just
give it a minute.
Just hold on. And I think that was about 3 years ago. Last year was just way too busy with work, couldn't get out there. But this year I said to Dad, we've got some warm weather. We'll get the skip bin in. We'll drop the deck.
Out.
The plan is to cut the kike and the Tahoma all at the same height.
Yep.
I've managed to keep the kike out of the Tahoma quite well, just by picking it out. In the early days, it was quite difficult. I had to do some spraying, but we just pick it out by hand now. And then I did another trial where I grew ryegrass as an apron. To try and increase, or trying to encourage endophytes to fight against the Kaiku, but I lost that battle quite quickly. Obviously endophytes do take a while to generate in the soil from the ryegrass, but I lost that battle quite quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing, and there's different. Like a lot of guys using like fescue, you can spray with fine fescue, you can spray cooch and everything, and kike and everything out of the fine fescue with fusillades and bits and pieces. And there's always different people trying different grasses to be able to control certain weeds against certain other plants, and it's a bit of a minefield out there where people are trying. There's clubs do all sorts of stuff to try and get rid of things, and find it's difficult for us because in SA we have to follow. In what we do, we have to follow labour rate. We can't dabble in ag or other stuff. Victoria, do what you want. These guys can spray. I don't know how they get away, but in Victoria they can do what they like, and they spray all ag products and random stuff and have great results. And they say, "Why don't you try this?" I said, "Because I'm in SA. I can only use if it's not my label. I can't use it." And obviously there's certain labels that say you need to keep a 2-year record of this. All that stuff,
and it's because one day someone will come in. And they'll be like, that bottle's half empty.
Where'd you spray it?
Where's your spray sheet for that? And it's like, because I'm all a big believer in if you don't do the right thing, eventually you'll get caught.
Law, you'll catch it.
Eventually, and I've got many stories in my previous job where that's happened, and. You just, it's our first immutable law: do the right thing, and it's just do the right thing.
It'll catch you pretty quick. So we, so a lot of clubs do that sort of stuff for different grass varieties, as you're saying. Plant different grass varieties to try and help out keeping another variety out. So there's some guys. Particularly in the eastern states, that do some of that stuff to help control power or kikuyu or cooch encroachment into greens and that sort of stuff. So that becomes a big issue.
The Sandy Creek Golf Club, where I'm a member at, they started using Pilex in the green, and they've all the cooch and cooch and kiku's gone.
It's incredible.
It's like. Because with the water pro side of this business, I deal with them, irrigation wise, and they told me a couple of months ago, we put that Pilex out, and I went through, didn't play that Saturday, went through the next Saturday, and it was all white.
It's incredible. It's calibre stable. It's like sometimes you don't realise how much cooch is in there, and you spray it. It's like, 100%. Wow.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I didn't know that. There was one green in particular. The last 24 months for them has been massive. Their focus has been greens and fairway presentation. And they did a Pilex application. I didn't even know it was cooch. And they lost that part of the green.
Yeah,
it was cooch.
Yeah, because you can get cooch, because we have a bit of it, and you can, when you get it prepped up, especially Santa Ana, you can't tell the difference. No. Looks like bent grass.
Yeah.
But you spray it, you realise,
especially when it's been rolled over, so many times. Like, but within 3 weeks, the bent started coming back, and as you know, when bent's in prime growing conditions, it'll grow, it'll keep up with everything.
Yeah, we have it compete with cooch, and we can't get rid of it. We try and spray everything on it. It won't. We can't knock it out of our cooch. It's we've tried every chemical.
Yeah.
We can't control it. So it's just a rogue bent that's
Yeah.
taken off out there. That's probably been there for 40 years. We cannot control it.
Yeah.
And you put it on a green, the thing would die on us. But it's one of those things.
That's Murphy's Law.
Yeah, it's never ending. But the new chemicals that have come out are incredible. That makes our job easier. And things like, cooch encroachment's a big issue for golf clubs, and they have a new Pilex is out, and there'll be some. I'm sure there'll be other ones that are coming out. But it's not the silver bullet, but it's because we have lost some chemicals over the years that have disappeared, and these ones now we're getting some new chemicals to fill holes, and that Pilex is one of them. Does a great result on cooch. It's not cheap, but it is what it is, and you got to work out how you want to use it and whether you do it progressively or however you go it. And there's other ones like Power Cure for Power and Green, which is very, very expensive.
Yes.
But the results on that, results we've had, are worth every cent.
Yeah.
So the results you get from it, but it becomes unachievable for a lot of clubs because it's not just whatever the result you get, you just physically couldn't afford it. But it's and that will change. There'll be other chemicals, no doubt, that will come out that will match that will be a tenth the price, and then people will be able to use it. So it is it's good that there is new chemicals coming out. Even though there is new chemicals coming out, they're saying there's no new chemistry being made. There hasn't been for the last 20 years. It's just rehashing old chemistry and retesting it and reformulating it. So it'll be interesting over the next 10 years whether there's many new ones coming out, but there has been the last couple. There's been some good stuff that have come out.
And it goes back to what we talked about before, use within moderation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Switch it up. The product that first came to mind that you said that, with the turf industry sort of lost, not so much in the home sense, but is Endothol. So pole check. Pole check for so many years. That's all everyone ever talked about.
Yep.
Pole check, pole check, pole check.
And you get it for cooch now, like Monument and Tribute, being amazing products. And the Monument now, we put it out, doesn't even yellow the cooch, the Power. So, and there's Curb, propizamide, all that stuff.
Yeah, or Breck.
All that stuff. So you get it from your from Bunnings, and I'm not sure what it's called. It used to be called. I don't know, you can still get it. Anyway, you put it out, people would say, what, have you tried this product from... I'm like, well, we've been using it for years, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't touch it. So we're like, well, that's the problem with all that stuff. When it came out, because that was the only thing was available, so you use that for 3 years, and then it wasn't as good. Then Monument came out, so we all jumped on that, use that for 4 or 5 years, and then it reduces it effectively, and then you go out to Tribute, and it was awesome, and then... But if we had used Monument once, then went back to Curb or whatever, we had it rotated, but we didn't go back to Curb because Curb didn't work, so we went to the one that stuck with that. So things like Power Cure that's come out, people are really cautious of that. I'm really cautious of it. We've had great results. I'm going to shelve that now for the next 3 years or 4 years. Back onto other stuff. Keep ticking along until we get to the point where we've got the threshold is we can't deal with it anymore. Let's have another go. But it's just, if we put it out for the next 3 years, the greens would be clean. That'd be awesome. But eventually, I've lost that product. So then I'm back to having Power coming in. Then when people looking at resurfacing greens to get rid of Power, we haven't. And some of our greens is 40 years old because we don't feel like we don't need to because we're able to keep that Power at bay. So we just want to make sure we keep that product in our pocket and not ruin it by overuse.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think that should hit home with a lot of people at home as well. Like it's use within moderation. It's so important. And that's not only a responsible thing to do, it's also the right thing to do because that means, as we all, and if you aren't aware, Royal Adelaide is it's probably probably the first elitist in Adelaide, I suppose, in terms of membership and not exclusivity because if you've got a GA, you can go through the right channels to play golf there. But there is a standard and there's an expectation and like you said, if you smash it for 3 years and get free, but then you got nothing. You got nothing to come back with.
And people look at us and what are you doing and how are you doing it? So we have a lot of our club and our members have expectations and look and focus. We have a lot of other people looking inwards as well and what we do and questioning why. And the club's really strong on we do what we do. And as long as they're comfortable with it, we don't tend to worry about what other people are doing, and we don't want to get caught up in that because you can end up chasing your tail a bit and starting to jump at shadows. As long as we're comfortable with it and we educate people. So, for example, we had, when we had worm castings really bad, other clubs didn't have them so much. They had Santarano, so the fairway's a lot tighter. They don't come up as much. But a common cooch, the worms would come up, and we're quite flat and muddy. So we only have probably a third of our courses in sand. The rest of it's just on clay. So, it's shocking.
I didn't know that.
It's mud. So we were having lots of trouble with worm castings, and then everyone would say, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And then I had a discussion one day, and I made a report, but also had a discussion at a women's that luncheon that I spoke to for 10 minutes about what we're doing and explained about the worms. And I said, we can spray for worms, we can put some chemicals out and try and knock them over, but I don't think we should be in the business of killing earthworms.
No,
and
absolutely
all the women
not.
in the room were like, we don't want to do that. I said, so I can't stop them coming up and producing worm castings. If we've got worms, we've got good soil and it's healthy, and they were like, and now after that, from that point on, all they could talk about is how good the soil was because we got lots of worms, and they get the lift, clean and replace rule, and then now that's even changed because we're not getting as many, whether that's to do with the pre-emergent, but we're not getting as many worm castings and no one talks about it.
Yeah.
But before we educated them or spoke to them, they were like, oh, just get rid of the worms.
Yeah,
Well, what can you get? How do you get rid of them? Like, well, I can't. I can kill them. And like, oh, I don't kill them. Okay, then.
That's literally like everything.
Yeah.
That's literally like
and
everything.
it's about education and understanding it. And that's a problem as you talk about Facebook. Because everyone's an expert and everyone can send a comment about that's ridiculous, just use this, you'll be right. Well, just because they've used it, they may have got a good result out of it. Doesn't mean you will. And they're not following the instructions, and then if something goes wrong, old mate that's given the advice, he's not going to come around and fix their lawn for them.
No,
he's not coming up to us,
absolutely
sorry, I'll give you a bum steer, I'll spend $600 and buy some turf for you. That's not going to happen. He's just disappeared.
Delete your account.
Yeah, gone. So got to follow the label, but also do some research and find out, because everyone will get. If you've been doing it a long time, you'll understand it. But if you're just taking advice from a keyboard warrior, you'll end up down a big hole.
You'll end up with a product on the shelf that you have no use using.
Yeah.
We got a question come through about sprayer calibration. So obviously for you guys over a large area, sprayer calibration needs to be on point, because if you over applicate, you're wasting product. It's a waste of money. You under applicate, then you've done all that work. And you've
as we said before, it's to the detriment of the chemical or the fertiliser. We waste our time as well. So
I think what this person's trying, I don't think Instagram's allow them to ask the whole question, but I think what they're asking is if you have a calibrated sprayer, and I'll translate his question to a golf question, which then can be translated back to the homeowner. If you've calibrated your sprayer for the fairway, would that then mean the same calibrations for the green in terms of how much water?
Yeah, so so it depends on the water. So our sprayers are a bit different. So we've just manufactured some sprayers that are all self-steer, GPS controlled, individual nozzle.
From the spray shop?
Yeah. So they've been awesome. Over the last 3 years, we've built these and they're incredible. So we hop on them now, tell the machine I'm going to spray the first fairway. It puts the map up. I drive out there, turn the sprayer on. It won't spray until I'm on the fairway. Then I can make it do a straight line, and then there's no overlap. It's within 30 mil repeat accuracy. Once we've calibrated that spray and told it what it's putting out, it knows if I can enter in, say, I want to spray at 240 litres a hectare or 500 litres a hectare, it just adjusts itself, and it doesn't matter how fast or slow I go, it puts that amount of product out. So for us, in theory, it's easy. Once we've set it, we still recalibrate. We always recalibrate because it says it's putting that out. Often the guys will spray and they know they've put a hectare's worth of product in, they've sprayed a hectare and there's some left over, something's not right, so we'll recalibrate. But we do it quite often. We have a rule that if we ever spray greens with any chemical, not fertiliser, but any chemical, they have to be calibrated before they go out, because you don't want to go out there and put twice as much of a chemical out and shit can go wrong. So we have had stuff go wrong. No detriment, but that was our rule after that point. There's a policy we've come up with. But I think so it depends on what we're putting out. If we're putting out, some products need to go out. For example, if you're putting Endothelin out, it needs to go at something like 125 litres a hectare, which is really, really light amount. Go to the fungicide, sometimes they'll need to be at 600 or 1,000 litres a hectare. So depending on what product you're putting out, we can enter that into the system, and the pump will adjust that, or the valves will open up or shut, whatever they need to do. Previous to that, you still have the ability to ramp the pressure up or down to put out what amount of water you want to put out. So, but as a home lawn or a home turf guy that wants to spray his lawn, I think the best way, because unless you're putting, you can buy the sprayers that have the little valves that on it, you can put the right amount of flow out and pressure out. That's awesome. You soon get, if you just spray your lawn enough, you know whether the pressure's coming out of the nozzle right or however it is. But the best way to do it is literally fill your backpack up spray, or fill up to a certain level with water, go out and spray it 2 different directions, I reckon, or maybe even 3 different directions, and then see how much water you've put out. And if I've used 3 litres to do 100 square metres, then that's your rate. You've put out 3 litres per 100 square metres, then you know that that's what you need to fill up with
Yep.
the chemical, and that's what you need to do. So there's those ways, and then if you need to put it out a lot more, then do it 3 more times or whatever you need to do. But that's how I would be calibrating my sprayer at home. Would be spray, put some water in it, see how much you've used out of it, and that's what your rate would
Yeah.
be. So there's other ones, I think the good ones now, you can get little booms with the 3 nozzles on them and pump
we
them
sell
up.
them, yeah.
Those sort of things, and you can get as I said before, you can get the attachments that go in there, so you can pump it up, but it'll only let a certain amount through. So you can pump your sprayer up and away you go, and walk up and back, and that you can easily do it, making sure you're doing it with the water first to make sure you're not going out there and going at a too high rate or a too lower rate. But you're always better off most times going over your lawn 2 to 3 to 4 different directions, because it doesn't matter what you do with the nozzles. You've got your little boom. If you go 2 different ways, you're not going to miss any bits. You're going to get better overlap, and you're probably going to get better coverage, because a lot of the chemical, particularly things like mites, you want the plant covered in it. You don't want it just sitting on the top.
Yep.
You want it wrapped around. So that comes down to nozzle size, but nozzle size on little hand booms, probably not that easy. But if you cut the different directions, you're going to get better coverage with that product. So it wraps around the plant and then sits on the plant, or then you can wash it in. So, and it's also things like not calibrating, but working out how much water you're putting out on your lawn and how much water you're putting out for an irrigation cycle. With our system at work, it's state of the art. It's a top of the line irrigation system. It's been in for quite a while, but we're always working on it. But we can tell it to put out water for either minutes. We can say it's water for 5 minutes, or we can say it's water for 5 millimetres.
Yep.
And we use millimetres because it's a lot easier to comprehend in your head. If I've had 5 millimetres of rain, I can sort of work out what that is.
Yeah.
So we water in millimetres. So I can water my greens for 7 millimetres or 6.5 or whatever I want. So you can do that at home to a certain extent. You just put some catch cans out, which is you can buy them. You can buy catch cans. If you don't want to, just get a tin, but the tin has to be square. It can't be a cone, as in can't be tapered. It has to be square sides. Put a heap of them out your lawn, water, put your lawn up, your irrigation up for 10 minutes, go measure your can, see how much water's in there, and you'll soon know for 10 minutes I'm putting out 2 millimetres, or for 10 minutes I'm putting out 10 millimetres, whatever it is. Then you can work out how much water you're putting out. So you want to know that stuff. You don't want to go, I'm just watering for 10 minutes, because what's that?
10 minutes?
What's 10 minutes?
And
you have no idea.
Clint talks about that nearly every week.
It's really important.
If you have like you said, if you got a really well designed, water design, or you got a home lawn and you've got perfect overlap, you've got head-to-head coverage, you don't even need, in some cases, you can just say, that nozzle's putting out 16 mil. Yeah. And, it's done. Easy.
You know that stuff. So that's really important, because, again,
absolutely,
some of those labels will say water in with 6 millimetres of irrigation. If you just think, I'll put up for 3 minutes, that could be half a millimetre.
Yeah.
Half a millimetre. You don't know until you actually get that research. It doesn't take much.
No.
But work it out.
And then it goes back to, you just wasted your product, and you've wasted your time.
Or if it says to wash off a leaf, you put it up for 4 minutes and it's pumping the water out and it's washed it off the leaf, off the crown into the soil, then you've wasted your product again. So it's really important. That stuff, they're the simple things you need to do once, and then away you go. And the calibration of sprays is another one of those ones.
Absolutely. And we daily we'll talk about people with, just spend 10-15 minutes calibrating your sprayer, because then to cover your lawn I need 3 litres of water, and that whatever the product,
you know what it is.
3 litres done. Nath, we could literally, I feel like we could keep talking for hours. It is 4 o'clock. Dylan has filming to do after this job for another job. That's just a joke that we do each week for Dylan. There is a few questions here. There's a lot of I suppose media in here, but I'll try and moderate these as best as possible. Yeah, we write when EV ruins the golf courses, so that's Bearded Sid talking about the train.
With electric vehicles. Just be a while before that happens. It's one of those ones. There is golf clubs out there that do it. There's some guys. It's a guy in Germany that has all electric mowers out there, but they're only rotary mowers. There's no cylinder mowers yet, and they're coming. But the issue is just sitting it out there. That electric mower isn't going to see a tree root or absolutely or a golfer for starters. But that sort of stuff, you don't want Mrs. Smith being run over, because that shit's going to go bad. But that sort of stuff's quite a while away. That will just mean that staff can do other stuff, and it will come in. There'd be self-driven stuff. As I said, we have self-driven sprayers.
Yeah.
We still have to be on them to operate them.
Absolutely,
That
yeah.
will happen in time, but it won't be in my time. I could be another 20, 25 years before we end up having self-driving mowers. But if you might, they just won't leave the shed and go mow. You might have to have someone out there that'll have 3 mowers on one fairway and he's keeping an eye on them, or they might go at night time. We'll have to have people involved in making sure they're okay, because you can't just send them out. They won't. The sensors won't be that good for quite some time.
Yeah,
and they've been. For the last, I reckon, 20 years, they've been having electric mowers, the electric self-driven cylinder mowers, and nothing's advanced in the last 20 years. They're all trying really hard.
Yeah.
They're getting better, but nothing's come to the market yet.
This is from Manjarang. You touched on it briefly about your pre-emergent and stopping it on the fairways, but they've asked, what you're doing, in winter to make sure the course and the cooch is kept, looking as good as it can. But, like you said...
Yeah, so so coming into dormancy, it's really important to make sure your turf's healthy. So we put 2 granular fertilisers out each year. So when we renovate, then we put a granular fertiliser out, and then from then on we just do liquids every 2 weeks, liquids with Trinexapac, so keep the plant tight. It sounds a bit contradictory, but we put fertiliser out with a growth regulator.
Yep.
And people say, why would you do that? What's the point? Well, the fertiliser is to make the plant healthy. We aren't in the business of growing leaf. We're in the business of maintaining the surface we have. If I didn't cut a blade of grass ever, as long as the surface is good, then I'm winning. So it's about making sure the plant's healthy, it's got a good root system, it grows, but it doesn't produce heaps of leaf, and then we end up just having to cut it off. So the Trinexapac stops it from growing quickly, but the fertiliser makes it healthy and hold it together. So we do that, and then just before we renovate in September, we'll fertilise late September, get it out of dormancy, get it out of renovation, and then we'll liquid fertiliser all the way through to probably mid-March. Then we'll go another granular fertiliser, which will have a lot more amendments in it, and that'll make the plant really strong and healthy before it goes into bed. It's a bit like a bear going into hibernation.
Yeah.
They feed themselves up. Snakes do the same thing. They gorge and eat up, park themselves, and then they go into dormancy healthy, and they'll survive through dormancy and come out. So the cooch will still tick over a little bit, but you want to get it nice and strong before it goes in. And then we'll have the pole start to take over, but we're putting Trinexapac still over winter, which doesn't affect the cooch too much because it's not growing, but it still holds the pole short and tight, so then it can stay. Otherwise, it will crowd the cooch and take over and become big and puffy. We keep it nice and short. As I said, we cut it at 6 mil, and then as soon as it warms up in September and we get into renovation, away we go again.
Yeah.
So it's about making sure it's healthy going into dormancy.
There's been so much valuable information, and it's stuff that, last 2 years especially, we've done a drive late season of your lawn is only as good at the end of end of winter. Now, you need to do the work now.
Yeah, it has to be healthy. At the end of summer, middle of winter, middle of autumn, it has to be pretty healthy. Because if it's ordinary, it'll go in and then it will fall apart, and then you think I'll renovate it, but then you renovate it and it's destroyed, and then you got to spend a lot of time and effort to get it to recover.
Yeah. So the amateur pack is the pack that we have been pushing the last 2 years. Once the summer starts to taper off, boom, the whole plan and the scheduling that we do is exactly what you've just talked about, and
it's really important.
It's and you talk what we talk about is that curve. So you're holding for as long as you can, rather than going
absolutely.
And we've found that a couple of our clients that have used our products religiously, they'll send us photos of previous years, and their use of going into the cooler months and really, like you said, boosting the plant, getting it healthy, feeding it, and they're not tapering off at all. They're just staying
the colour
there.
can stay there, and then you're putting out your irons during winter to keep that retain that green colour, and that's really what we put iron out, really just to colour it. So we put a bit of nitrogen, a bit of iron out, slow release usually, and just keep ticking it at slow rate. So I'll go out we'll put out. The product we use is probably only a 12% nitrogen, and it's got slow release in it, and we'll put out 20 litres a hectare.
Yeah, wow.
That's tiny.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is per 100. What's it?
20 mil.
200 mil.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
And a bit of
200.
and that's not a lot of product.
No,
We put
it's
that
not,
with some Trinexapac, and we just go and we'll put a bit of iron with it. So we'll put per hectare 12 kilos of iron in it, and it just literally keeps it dark. And as soon as you get it dark, and that creates heat, and then heat pulls in some creates photosynthesis, which means the plant then will grow more. So there's a double-edged sword. It colours it, but it also makes it dark, which means it wants to grow and be healthy. So it pulls in some more light. So that's what we try and do. We don't. Whereas rather than going bang with a heap of fertiliser and then you have this flush of growth and then you scalp off and then you chase your tail, we're trying to be on it. And we're religious on the pre-mow because you let it go, it will get away on you and then you're in trouble.
Literally everything that you've said today, we talk about every single day with our customers, with people, with the public, and again, sorry, Dylan, but we're going on tangents. I'm so sorry, but the hype about PGR's growth regulators, Trinex Pack, over the last probably 5 years has been again one of those products that the homeowner will just never be able to get unless someone was doing the dodgy on a golf course and said, "Here,
hand it out. Here's a water bottle full."
But so you cannot let it come out of red. You cannot let it
chase your tail. And sometimes, and so we don't work on, but we have done before, which in theory should work on a thing called growing degree days.
Yep.
And growing degree days, if you've discussed, it's not difficult, but it takes a bit of work, and it's really accurate. But sometimes during summer, if you followed it, I'll be spraying every 7 days, and I just can't. Even though I have good staff numbers and budgets, I couldn't afford to do it every 7 days. So last year we had a issue with, it must have been just after Christmas over those. We had a heap of rain, heap of humidity, and we had a public holiday somewhere where we cut on a Friday and we couldn't cut to the Tuesday. And because it was hot the week before, the Trinex Pack, instead of lasting this 14 days, it probably lasted 7. We come back and it was like we were renovating again. We were scalping grass off because it literally within 3 days it just took off. And then we had to lift our heights up. We couldn't keep the same heights for cut. It would become a mess for about 4 weeks until we could control it again, get it back to where we needed it, and then get it back to stop scalping. But that was just one event. So it's sometimes you think, we'll just go out every 3 weeks, it'll be okay. But then you get this ebb and flow of fluctuating growth, and then just stops completely, and then it fluctuates. It wants to be constant, so it just ticks along. So you need to be on top of those applications.
Syngenta have a free GDD sign up now, so that's awesome. That's exactly what I suggest to anyone that's interested. There's online calculators that people have made for free, and it's just sign up to the Syngenta, and they'll send you an alert. Hey, you're at 80%. Hey, you're at 95%. You need to get it down.
You need to get it out.
You know, and it just takes all the hard work out of it, because before I discovered it and I didn't realise that it was actually free. I was like, all right, you got to go to this website.
Top level and bottom level, it's a nightmare.
You got to put a number in here, work off 200, 220 around those numbers, and then all right, you got to watch your weather every day, and it was too hard.
Exactly.
It was way too hard.
And it's hard, but for a home guy who's looking after his turf, it's easy enough, because if he's got to spray his lawn, he's got to pop out. It might take him 20 minutes to spray. He can do it, get home from work and do it. For us, it becomes all of a sudden, I've got to find 2 guys for 5 hours in front of golf with no wind to get it done. And all of a sudden, there's wind for 3 days in a row. Then I'm out. I'm done. Then I'm out of my growing degree limit. And then I've sort of the poet. Then the premo's dropped off, and it's started to take off. And then so it becomes a really big balancing act in getting it right. And people think, why don't you spray? Well, I can't spray because it's too windy, or there's golf, or our GPS units have made a big difference because we don't have any foam marker now. But when we had a big event, we couldn't spray in front of the field because you'd have foam drops everywhere. Now there's none of that. It's all clean. So it changed our ways a little bit.
I didn't even think of the foam.
The foam, because everyone freaks out about it. What are you doing? I can't find my golf ball because there's white dots everywhere.
Because obviously in a home setting, no one, or there would be people that would be using foam, but
probably, But you can go whip it out in 10 minutes and be done with it, whereas it takes us 5 hours. For 2 guys.
We talked about someone using a battery flex, in a home. There'd be people that are using foam, Scott DK just quickly asked, do we sell Primo Max? We do, but unfortunately Primo Max has come off the shelf. It's gone through a reformulation. Primo Max 2 is now the product is coming out in the bottles that we sell, because no one would have, or there would be people that buy 5 litres off us, but in terms of our packaging size, that's probably not due till next year. So we don't sell Primo Max currently, but we sell Astro, which
that's what we use. So it's Trinexa Pack. There's other variations. Trinexa, and it's just a different name
and
different solvents and stuff, but it would do just as good a job.
There's, and again, we could go for hours until we pass out, but there's Clint was saying, he was speaking to someone, that some people use brand A for their greens, Trinex Pack, and brand B for their fairways because of the browning effect, and that's all. But there'll be some of them will have a bit more of a burning effect depending on if it overlap or whatever. It's just a tinge off, and a lot of people put some iron with it, so you'll hide that. And so whatever brand it is, if you can get
Trinexapac, then get Trinexapac.
Yeah,
Doesn't
and
need to be Primo.
There's so many different.
We always use the word Primo because that's probably the name. That's it's like a texter.
It's like
as a
Esky.
kid, it's just a brand
Yeah.
that we're all used to, and we use that name. So
Yeah.
it's just we all use the word Primo, but it is Trinexapac.
And then when, Acelepryn's come out of the protected zone now, so there's another company that have replicated it. It's on the APVMA website.
Yep.
So, but we'll forever know it as
It's
a
Acelepryn. Yeah, and that's great marketing.
Yeah,
They've nailed it. So, so Trinexapac is what you just it doesn't matter if it's Astro or Marvel or Primo or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You just got to work out with the label because they're all a bit different, different rates, and sometimes vary the rate. So we will, we might go out at, for example, we might go at 800 mil during winter. Then the control mightn't be as good, so we might go to 900 or a litre. Then we might go to 1.2. It just varies on the time of year. So we just follow the label rate, and then because the label rate does give a pretty variance, and we start off the lower one and work our way up or down depending on the growth.
Someone's just written here, Nate Extreme, where's the bloke with the unusually large head? And then Jack's written, without Clint, it's far too professional. No one swears. No, we can swear. I don't care. But I've actually really enjoyed this, and it's really fitting for us that the advice we're giving is in line with the advice that you've talked about, your experiences. And I think, and it just goes back to moderation as well in terms of what the advice that we give, because there's obviously there's questions out there that we can't legally answer because the chemicals that are available aren't available to the public. And
absolutely.
I'm not one of those people that are going to go out and say, well, if you go and knock on this golf club's door and
you can get some of this, get some of that.
It's not responsible.
But I think for the guy that's doing his turf at home, what you guys provide and what you can get from that market is absolutely enough. You're not absolutely, and compared to what you have, but you can produce an amazing turf surface with what's available currently. You're not, the stuff that people are trying to get is, or maybe a shortcut, or some of the old school chemicals. You don't need that stuff. No. So, but I think this industry has changed massively, and this space where the front yards and the obsession. I think it's a wonderful thing because having people obsessed by their front yards only adds value to your property. It adds value to your street. It adds time at being home. You're outdoors. You're getting involved in stuff in the grows. There's no downside to it. And I think the way it's blown up in the last 15 years is amazing, and I think it creates little businesses. People get obsessed with them, and then they start chasing lawnmowers, and then there's guys that are sharpening those, and then people that are rebuilding them and selling them on again. And it's huge. It's massive, and I think there's no downside to it, as I said, and I think it's a really wonderful pastime. My brother is not in turf at all. He's in ag, but in machinery. But he's moved from his house, but he was obsessed by it for 25 years. Every time he called me, he only ever called me to say, "Hey, what can I use for this, or where do I get that?" Or what? It was out of control. I said, "Don't call me." It was never ending. And he's moved now, and he's and he doesn't have any grass. I think he misses it, but he was obsessed by it like 15 years ago, and it's sort of. That was a bit new back then, but it's sort of in the last 10, particularly last 5 years. Yeah. And I got some apprentices, and they pulled their lawns out already. They've already got new lawn down. They've got their Scott Bunner. They're right into it. And I think it's a wonderful thing that people are involved in. Yeah, you could be doing at the pub all day, but these guys are right into it. Yeah. And it's a passion. I think it's great.
And that's so my front yard last week, was it last weekend, Dylan? Yeah, it was last weekend, was the golf day in my front yard. So in the past, we'd raise money for a certain charity. However, that charity this year told us to get nicked because for their own personal, blue-haired lesbian agendas. So I was quite upset about that, and I was like, I don't want to do it because the whole reason I did it was to raise money for mental health and, to be out in the lawn, have fun with your family, your friends. But then I remembered, why I do it, I get out in the lawn, I'm enjoying it, I'm having fun,
proud of it,
and I'm proud of it. Like this year was the best it's ever looked. Like I'd put some time into it, and the people that came had fun, and we get prizes and all that sort of stuff. But more importantly, we're there with our friends, our family, and despite all the comments that our ads get about lawns are shit, lawns are a waste of space, blah blah blah.
You're never going to beat that.
It's more than that to more people, that's the minority, but the majority. Who enjoy a surface or just a nice area for family, your kids, your dogs, your pets.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, and there's a lot of worse things out there that.
Oh yeah,
than
you're never going to
bloody
beat
laws.
the
Hell
keyboard
no,
warriors,
no.
and they probably do it just for something to do. But yeah, I think I think it's awesome to see it, and I love it because it's in my gig and it's my wheelhouse with the turf that we look after. And I love that people want to know what we do because that's what they want to do at their place. And it's cool, and I think people appreciate more the turf, what we do, because they know what the effort it goes into in their front yard. And goes, geez, I've got a small section. These guys do it in 100 times the size.
Yeah, absolutely.
So or 1,000 times the size. So that's I think I love that as well. People that really understand what we do.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, we keep going for hours, but there was stuff that we didn't talk about, like how people want to get into the industry, managing staff, like we said out there, more people, more problems. I think if you're willing, definitely have you on a second.
Absolutely. Yeah, enjoyed it.
There's a lot more to the other side of managing turf and of the business for that there's probably people in there that would want to know about as well.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
No props.
We've got some beers for you, some Safe on Buffalo.
Safe on Buffalo.
Clint's head's on all of them. So, there's, like I said, I could keep talking for hours, and I suppose so could you. But I really appreciate it. I hope whether you listen to it live, listen to it back, or you listen to it 10 years from now, there's a lot of valuable information that Nathan has shared today, and I think there's a lot of take homes for us, and I think the media team will have a lot of time clipping a lot of this information because it was all valuable. I haven't said it in weeks, Dylan. Come on. Come on. But, yes, thank you so much to everyone, and congratulations to the winners. Next month's giveaway is a big one. So we'll reveal. I know Clint's already spoken about it, but we'll release the finished product very soon. So, all right. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, mate. Good man.
Cool.